What character would realistically learn magic in Marvel? This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 The Collapse of Bordeaux Manor. A farmer looked at the dilapidated but still magnificent manor in shock. He leaned on his hoe and looked dazed. Gods! What is going on? His companion also looked at the earth-shaking scene, but was not as shocked as him. He just said indifferently, "What does it have to do with us? Go on to plant your land." After that, he waved his hoe to continue this hard work. Behind them, a strong man with flaxen hair saw this scene, screamed in despair, and ran towards the manor. The first farmer looked at his back and was even more puzzled. Where did this weirdo come from? Isn't Bordeaux's family only left with one daughter? His companion pushed him with his elbow impatiently. Why do you always care about these things? Can it make your children full tonight? If you keep watching, your wife will ask you to go to the barn to sleep tonight. When he mentioned his wife, he immediately lowered his head and started working, but his eyes were still staring at the collapsed manor. Cough cough. Geralt woke up with a cough, and his already aching body was now even more miserable. He clearly felt the blood on his face, but fortunately his ribs were not injured, and there should be no major problems with his internal organs. The demon hunter's night vision ability allowed him to see in the dark. In the collapsed ruins, he turned his neck with difficulty and found that there were two wooden boards above his head forming an angle, which allowed him to survive. But what about the girl? Geralt coughed twice again, and his hoarse voice rang out in the ruins. "Is there anyone?" No one answered. Geralt licked his dry lips, and he used his remaining little physical strength to give himself a weak ken, and then began to crawl forward with the help of dark vision. The sword disappeared, and I didn't know where the crossbow was thrown. Fortunately, this dragon leather armor was not lost, although it no longer glowed with a flickering red light. He crawled hard in the ruins. After dozens of meters, the front suddenly became clear, and a small gap appeared, and a beam of light shone through the gap. He used his ungloved right hand to pinch Alder, and the telekinesis instantly blew away the ruins at the entrance of the cave. The fragments and wood chips flew everywhere. A beam of sunlight shone on the Witcher's face, making him squint his eyes involuntarily. Geralt slowly climbed out, and he stood up with difficulty, looking around in the sunlight. The once magnificent manor is now only a ruin, with broken wood and debris, and the crows have disappeared. He limped forward, and after taking 2 steps, he knelt down and vomited a mouthful of dark, sticky blood, which was still hot, but corroded the wood with a hissing sound. He had double vision in front of his eyes. The Witcher clearly remembered that he entered the manor at noon, but now it looked like early morning. Obviously, there was a big problem with his perception in the manor, and his perception of time became extremely blurred. The Witcher pressed his chest, and he gasped hard, like a broken bellows. He coughed hard again, followed by a dry heave, as if he wanted to vomit out everything in his body. After that, he felt better. Geralt raised his head. He knew that the only thing that could save him now was the white honey on Carrod's saddlebag. After drinking this potion, he could eliminate the effects of all potions he had drunk before, including poison. But with the huge noise of the manor's collapse, Carrod would have probably run away long ago. Geralt lay down. He wanted to make himself more comfortable in the last moments of his life, at least without any pain. The sun shone on his face. He closed his eyes, and felt a sense of peace, until a voice gently called him, "Sir, wake up." He opened his eyes with difficulty, and he had never felt this small action so strenuous. Geralt saw the black-haired girl who pushed the door open before was gently pushing his head. The Witcher said impatiently, "Let me be quiet for a while, okay? Please, just for a while." He closed his eyes again, as if he was going to die, but he heard some noises the next second. He somehow managed to generate strength and pushed the girl away. A wooden stick hit her in the place where she was before. The Witcher looked up and saw a flaxen-haired man grinning and spitting at him. The spit hit him right on the face. The guy chuckled twice. "It's you. It's because of you." Geralt was sure that he had never seen this man before, but his hatred was genuine. as if he wanted to cut the Witcher into pieces and eat his flesh and blood. He swung the wooden stick. This time, the Witcher had no strength to dodge and could only bear the heavy blow. The man was very strong. The wooden stick was about to hit the Witcher's head with great force, but it didn't work as it should. A thin layer of yellow shield disappeared after a sound like glass breaking. The man's palm was shattered by the overly strong reaction force, and the wooden stick fell to the ground. A few drops of blood on his hand fell on the Witcher's leather armor. Seeing this, the man became even more furious. He grabbed the weak white-haired Witcher and punched him in the nose. The blood of the two mixed and flowed down. The man did not stop at all. He kept hitting the Witcher's face like a beast. 1 punch, 2 punches, 3 punches. With each punch, Geralt spat out a back molar, and an ugly smile bloomed on his face. "You idiot." The red light was brighter. The exquisite patterns on the Witcher's leather armor lit up again, illuminating his profile. Geralt grinned, and his originally weak body regained strength. He pushed the man away, and the force made him fall to the ground. Geralt did not hesitate. He pounced on him, and his yellow cat eyes were already stained with a bit of scarlet. The scarlet light of the leather armor was getting faster and faster, just like his heartbeat and his growing bloodthirstiness. The Witcher bit off the man's ear. As he screamed, he grabbed the man's face with both hands, pressed his thumbs against his eyes, and pressed down hard. He screamed and twisted wildly on the ground, waving his arms and kicking his thighs, trying to get the Witcher out of his body. But Geralt had almost lost his mind at this time. He just wanted more blood. Anyone's blood. The Witcher roared this word. He looked more like a monster than the monster. Before, the man had thrown many heavy punches at him, and now it was Geralt's turn. But his punches were much heavier than the man's. The first punch broke the man's mouth and knocked out several of his teeth. The second punch landed on the bridge of his nose. Amid the surging blood, Geralt had a cruel smile on his face that he didn't even realize. He pulled the man's chin with one hand and held his upper jaw with the other. He exerted force with both hands. Lena Bordeaux, who covered her mouth to prevent herself from screaming, could swear to the gods that this was the cruelest way she had ever seen. The man's jaw was torn apart by the Witcher's brute force. Geralt threw his jaw aside like a piece of trash, and his tongue was pulled out. When he finally died, the Witcher's face, covered in blood, reflected the flickering red light. He turned his head and smiled at Lena Bordeaux. The blood and his white teeth intertwined to form a horrible picture. Chapter 77 The Collapse of Bordeaux Manor. At that moment, Lena Bordeaux thought she might die at his hands, but the Witcher fell down again after that kind smile, coughing, with blood flowing from his lips and teeth. Lena approached bravely, and the Witcher's voice was very soft. "Have you seen a horse? Is it chestnut?" "Oh damn, he really should have told me the effect of this leather armor." "Yes, a chestnut mare, very docile. I saw it on the gravel road in front of the door before." "Okay, very good." Geralt tried his best to make himself clear. "I need your help with a small favor." "I haven't asked your name yet." "I am Geralt of Rivia, a Witcher." "Lena Bordeaux." The girl's words made the Witcher's eyes widen. He looked at Lena for a long time before looking away, smiling bitterly, and said, "Why didn't that dead old man say that you are such a brave girl?" "I want you to help me find the horse and open the saddlebag. You can see some bottles of potions. Find a bottle of orange potion and a bottle of pure white, very viscous potion and bring them to me, okay?" The girl nodded and ran away immediately, leaving Geralt alone in the ruins. The sunlight had become a little blinding by now, so he simply closed his eyes. The life of the man he had just taken gave him some strength for a while, and he could still live for a while, but it was painful, and every breath felt like someone was stabbing him with a knife in his lungs. Geralt decided that if he was not dead and could go back alive to see Shenyan, he would definitely scold him, at least give him an instruction manual. Thinking of this, he touched his leather armor again. Its surface was still hot, and the blood that had been stained on it before had now completely disappeared, as if it was a dream. And what happened this night was indeed like a dream, a nightmare for the Witcher. He began to recall, from entering the manor, to that woman, the banquet hall, being swallowed by the floor, floating in a dark space, watching what happened in the banquet hall, the lantern being destroyed, himself being released, and so on. He suddenly opened his eyes and realized what he had missed. What did the woman say to him? Him? And the man, he said, statue. What statue? Before the Witcher could fully digest this question, he heard the sound of horse hooves. He turned his head and saw a girl riding his horse and running towards him quickly. She was pretty and rode the horse well. Just as Geralt was thinking about it, Lena Bordeaux had already arrived beside him. The girl jumped off the horse and took out the swallow and white honey from the saddlebag. She wanted to open the lid and feed the Witcher. Geralt waved her hand to stop and said, "Give me the white one first." Lena did as she was told. She carefully held the Witcher's head, let him rest on her legs, and fed him the white honey. The effect of the potion was immediate. The scary black blood vessels on his forehead and face disappeared immediately. The girl brought him a swallow to drink. Geralt drank it in small sips to prevent the weak toxicity of the swallow from causing secondary damage to his body. After a while, the effect of the swallow took effect completely. He let out a long breath of comfort and motioned the girl to help him. With Lena's help, he slowly stood up. Geralt said, "Listen. Do you have any statues or anything like that at home?" Lena frowned and recalled. She shook her head and said, "No, my father doesn't like statues. There is only a statue of the goddess Melitele in the backyard. It was my mother who talked to him for a long time before he agreed." Geralt sighed from his throat, almost wailing. "Damn it, what's wrong?" Lena asked cautiously. "No, nothing. Take me there, okay?" Geralt said weakly. Lena supported him and walked towards the backyard with 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow. To be honest, walking on the ruins is not an easy thing, but fortunately Lena is very familiar with this place. Even if it has collapsed into ruins, she can still recognize the general structure. They walked a full circle before coming to the backyard. Geralt saw the statue of the goddess Melitele at a glance. She stood in the ruins. The morning sun shone on her, but the ground beneath her feet was a ruin. The carefree girl pretended to laugh, with vines and cracks all over her body, and she looked fine. As long as you ignore why such an old statue that could collapse at any time could remain intact in such a collapse, it is indeed fine. The Witcher's eyes were calm, and he gently pushed Lena to let her move away. Geralt limped towards the statue himself, and the pendant on his chest began to vibrate wildly. Without hesitation, he used the kin sign again. Now, the silver sword was not in his hand, and he could only rely on his fists and the sign. He looked up at the laughing face of the goddess Melitele. One of her eyes was covered by vines. The Witcher thought, "Is this why you can't see the tragedy here?" He pinched the altar sign, and the light blue telekinesis burst out with all his strength. The statue collapsed with a loud bang, and a puff of green smoke floated into the sky. With the screams of thousands of different voices, a foul smell entered the Witcher's nose and dissipated after a few seconds. The head of the goddess rolled to his feet. The demon hunter lowered his head and stared at the single eye of the goddess Melitele. He felt a sense of calm. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Lena Bordeaux also stared at the smoke, but felt someone gently patting her shoulder. She turned back in a hurry, but saw no one. Only a team of guards rode towards them along the road not far away. Mallory wiped the cup absent-mindedly. He hadn't seen his sister for 4 days. He didn't know what she had experienced, but Mallory sincerely hoped that she was still alive. Bang, bang, bang. Someone knocked on her shop door. The young man with an old-fashioned mustache walked to the door like a zombie. He opened the door and saw a guard standing outside with a halberd in his hand. "Are you Mallory?" His voice came dully from behind the helmet. "Yes, it's me." "What's the matter? Didn't you report to Captain Duncan a few days ago that your sister was missing?" "She was found, reported by a thief. She's been locked in the room for 4 days. You'd better be mentally prepared, buddy. She looks really horrible." The guard patted her shoulder sympathetically, but Mallory didn't want to listen to what he said. He burst into tears when he learned that Virgil was still alive. "That's all for today. I overestimated myself a little. I haven't eaten since 6 o'clock and I can't stand it anymore. I owe you one more chapter tomorrow. Finally, I ask for some votes." Chapter 78. A story. The wizard walked into the inn empty-handed. The owner was not waiting behind the bar. There was only a white-haired demon hunter sitting at the table drinking. He approached the demon hunter and sat down opposite the table. Shenyan saw that Geralt had licked another scar on his face, which was very shallow. He looked not very good and frowned when he raised his hand to drink. Geralt finished the wine and put the heavy wooden cup heavily on the table. Some white foam flowed down his beard to his neck. He didn't care about it and said, "You've been away for a long time." The wizard nodded, and he took out a small bottle from the sleeve of his black robe like a magic trick. There was nothing in it. Shenyan didn't think it was strange at all. He opened the lid and poured the air in the bottle into Geralt's cup. The latter asked with a strange look on his face, "Do you mind explaining it to me?" The wizard didn't say anything, but just smiled and pushed the cup back, motioning him to drink it. The demon hunter looked at him, raised the cup and drank it all. When his tongue just touched the contents of the seemingly empty cup, it gave him a taste he had never tasted before. The demon hunter could not describe his feelings at this moment. He only felt that tens of millions of flavors exploded in his mouth, and even formed a new universe. At that moment, Geralt saw colors through his tongue. Countless stars drifted in a clear ocean, emitting soft light towards him. From Shenyan's perspective, he was stunned after taking a sip, staring blankly at the front, and kept that posture for a long time without moving. "How does it feel?" the wizard asked leisurely. "What is that?" "I tasted." "No, I saw." "It's really beautiful." The demon hunter came back to his senses, and he stared at the cup in a daze. Shenyan spread his hands. "It's hard to explain this to you, Geralt. However, you just drank the last legacy of a civilization, but it doesn't matter. It was their last wish." "What are you talking about? Legacy?" "Well, this is a long story. Do you want to listen to it?" Geralt moved his arm, and the pain still existed. He glanced upstairs again and nodded to the wizard. "We still have a lot of time. At least there is a lot of time before Mallory comes down. Then, in return, tell me who Mallory is after I finish telling this story." "Imagine it, Geralt. There is such a civilization. They have no form, cannot be touched, and cannot be observed unless they want to. They live in a very wonderful place, where there is only the ocean. They just float in the ocean, drifting with the waves, carefree. When night falls, they will look up at the stars in the sky together. This is one of the traditions of their civilization. During this period of time, they will briefly appear, like a star. And every night comes. Imagine, Geralt, you descend from the stars. As night falls, you see an ocean, in which countless stars float, each with different colors, all emitting their own brilliance." "I just saw it," the Witcher said honestly. Shenyan laughed. "Yes, of course you will see it." His smile faded slightly, and Geralt felt that what he was about to say might not be very beautiful. Just like those fairy tales, if you see a princess or prince living a happy and carefree life, then you know that he or she will soon be in trouble. Anyway, a long time passed. A stranger came to their world. This person looked very friendly and always happy. He was always smiling. Out of a sense of closeness, they were willing to approach this person and even accepted him as a member of the tribe. Then, after a while, this stranger had completed the purpose of coming here. He successfully analyzed them and learned how they communicated and reproduced. To him, they no longer had value. He announced one night that everyone should gather around him. There is no concept of lies in their civilization, so they all came according to what the stranger said. So, on that night, this civilization was destroyed. Shenyan pointed to the bottle and said, "That is their last legacy." "What is it?" "That picture, Geralt. What you see is the most beautiful picture of their lives. They don't know why the stranger wanted to hurt them, but they still maintain kindness to the world. As it should, they disappeared. But that kindness did not disappear. At least, it continued in you." And that stranger, he saw an unprecedented spectacle. He saw the creatures that he had hurt and killed with magic reappear. They floated in the ocean, hugged each other, and even did not forget the stranger. After doing all this, they slowly dissipated under the stars, turning into a mottled starlight. And in the very end, they gave the stranger a gift. They put their best memories into some bottles, gave them to the stranger, and wished him well. Shenyan looked at the mottled marks on the table and touched them with his fingers. The stranger didn't know. They actually knew what he wanted to do all along. Each of them is a natural psychic who can read minds, teleport, and even cause destruction. But they have never done this. and they don't even know it themselves. They just use their abilities to communicate with each other. The stranger was accepted, and he thought he was in control of everything. Little did he know that while he was being treated as a member of the tribe, he was also unconsciously letting them see his memory. After all, they have always done this. There are no secrets in this civilization. They saw the dark and cruel history in this man's mind and felt sad for the first time. And from his memory, they learned a concept called a gift. The Witcher's throat rolled up and down, and he said a little dryly, "The ending of this story had better be a happy ending." Shenyan replied calmly, "It depends on whose perspective you are standing on. For them, this is a happy ending. As for that man," the wizard laughed and shook his head, "his end is not so good. Please tell me he didn't die well. He went crazy." Geralt, for a wizard, this is more painful than killing him. "But I still hope he dies." "It's been a long time, Geralt, so long that you can just listen to this as a story. By the way, do you feel that you have changed a little?" The Witcher didn't understand. He scratched his head, and this time, the pain did not remind him. Chapter 79 Coincidences. Geralt's eyes widened in shock. He said fiercely, "This injury is nothing. You are a wizard. If you want to heal me, you can cast a spell instead of letting them." He couldn't continue. Shenyan was not angry. He understood Geralt's reaction. His reaction when he learned the truth after drinking a bottle was actually not much better than Geralt's. At that time, he almost had a duel with the Ancient One, as their last legacy. The shock of that scene was proportional to the nausea after learning the truth. Shenyan remembered the way he rushed into Ancient One's room with a sad face and smashed her favorite teapot, and shook his head with amusement. "Try to take a deep breath, Geralt. I didn't let you drink it just to make you better. This is a parting gift. Back then, they gave it to that man when they parted, and now, I will give it to you when I say goodbye. This is a tradition in my, school." The demon hunter calmed down. He rarely got so angry. But it went as quickly as it came. Geralt did not mention leaving. He changed the subject. "Tradition? My teacher gave it to me before she left." Shenyan waved his hand. He didn't seem to want to talk about it. He said, "I went back once in advance and made a little gadget and gave it to Vesemir. He should still be trying to figure out how to use it. I made it very simple on purpose. By the way, what do you think of the name One Button Lazy Self-Service Greengrass Trial Machine?" Shenyan said seriously. The corner of Geralt's eye twitched, and he asked, "One click what?" Shenyan answered patiently, "One click Lazy Self-Service Greengrass Trial Machine. Are you still laughing at the name I gave my horse?" "To be fair, Geralt, if you only had one horse named Carrot, I wouldn't laugh at you. But if every horse is named Carrot, that's a problem." "Damn it, the name you gave is not much better." "At least I didn't call every little thing I made One-Click Lazy Self-Service Greengrass Trial Machine." Geralt blushed, and he stammered, "It's different." "Different? This is different. I have feelings for this name," the wizard answered insincerely. "Ah, yes, yes, yes. You are right." He suddenly frowned and took out an emerald from his arms. At this time, the gem was blooming with a bright green light, illuminating half of the inn. Shenyan stood up, stuffing the gem back into his arms, and said to Geralt, "I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't have time to listen to you about Mallory." Geralt also stood up. "So urgent?" "Yes." Shenyan hurried out the door, and at the last moment he turned around and said to Geralt, "We'll see each other again, Water Ghost's lair." Geralt's face twitched again. He wanted to say something, but in the end he just laughed. Okay, you hateful wizard who only speaks half of the words." He watched Shenyan leave in a burst of green light, and footsteps came from the stairs behind him. The young man with a mustache walked downstairs. He was talking to a black-clad nun. The nun said to him, "There's nothing wrong with Village's physical condition. She didn't suffer any serious injuries, but you'd better be mentally prepared. According to her description, she is likely to be pregnant." Mallory was silent for a while, and he thanked the nun profusely and sent her away. Then, he squatted down, staring at the crowd passing by the door in a daze. The Witcher stood beside him and asked casually, "Did the guards find out who kidnapped her?" "They found out. The house belonged to a gangster named Drolls Dundry. The guards didn't find him." "Gods, I really hope he can die immediately," Geralt said. People like him are the worst among the scum of the gang. But I don't know why things turned out like this, Witcher." Mallory supported his chin sadly, and his eyes suddenly filled with tears. "First, my father died, and then my mother." Vilja disappeared for several days, and I was very happy that she was found. But, alas, he sighed heavily, "you also know what people think now, after this happened. How will she live in the future?" "God." The young man buried his head between his legs and cried bitterly. Geralt did not try to comfort him, but just waited for him to get better. As he expected, Mallory wiped his tears a few minutes later. "This is how the lower class people are. No matter how life treats them, knocks them to the ground, or even tortures them, they can't make them completely surrender. Being alive is more important than anything else." "I think that might be it, Witcher. Thank you for taking care of my business these days, but I'm leaving." Mallory's tone was firm. "I'm going to sell the store and move to the countryside with Vilja. No one knows us there, and no one will say anything to her. When she gets better, she can come back to continue her schooling." "Then how do you make a living?" "Farming. I can learn." Geralt shook his head and said, "Listen, young man, I admire your feelings for your sister, but doing this will only make your situation more difficult. You'd better wait for her to wake up and discuss it with her. I've seen too many relatives who have turned against each other because of one-sided good intentions." "But what about the child? She's so young. What if she has someone she likes in the future?" Mallory said anxiously. He seemed to have not considered himself at all, and his whole heart was on his sister. Geralt felt that after his parents died one after another, his sister might be the young man's last obsession. "We can't go against the teachings of the gods and abort the child. That would be too cruel. His father may be guilty, but the child—" Mallory didn't know what to do again. He stood up in despair and was about to go into the store to continue working, but suddenly raised his head. "Wait, Witcher, aren't you recruiting apprentices?" He looked at Geralt expectantly. The Witcher waved his hand impatiently and said, "Yes. It was like this a long time ago, but now." It was as if a lightning bolt struck his mind, and a sudden feeling made his hands and feet weak. The Witcher quickly stood up. It was as if a string was tightened in his mind, and he began to recall the improved green grass trial, the new apprentice, his prophecy, the Bordeaux manor, the man who came out of nowhere, the kidnapped Vilja and the child in her belly. Geralt murmured to himself, "In the dark night, the white wolf will meet the young black wolf. They will pass through the storm and cross the ocean. They will recast their former glory and search the whole world for a swallow. The black wolf will be dying, even on the verge of death." The strange feeling became stronger and stronger. Mallory looked at him in surprise, not understanding what the Witcher was talking about. But Geralt suddenly reached out and grabbed him, saying, "Yes, we are recruiting apprentices." The young man with the mustache swallowed his saliva, not understanding why the Witcher suddenly reacted so strongly. Obviously, he was still unwilling before, but he couldn't be happier to get rid of this hot potato. "By the way, Mallory, do you want to make a bet?" Geralt sat back at the table, picked up the bottle and took a sip. "Let's bet on that child. He will be born at night." "Sorry for being late. I will update yesterday later." Chapter 80 White Tower Council. The green light enveloped him, which was completely different from the feeling he had when he traveled by himself before. There was no sense of weightlessness, no universes wrapped in glass balls, and no gods from the outer realms floating in the darkness. Shenyan even suspected that he had been tricked by Ancient One again. She told him to find the White Tower Council, and then the person behind the gem contacted him and said that he would initiate the teleportation within a period of time. "Is teleportation between worlds so casual for you?" Shenyan only felt a flash of green light, and he was standing in a pure white room. There was no sign of life here. He stepped on the white ground under his feet. He didn't know what material it was made of, but when you stood on it, it was very hard. But when you stepped hard, it would become soft. A sense of curiosity suddenly arose in his heart, but he suppressed it. Now was not the time to do research. He stood up straight and waited patiently. After a while, a voice said, "Please show us the most powerful magic in your hand." "Wait, you were recommended by Ancient One?" "Damn it, just stand there and don't move." As soon as he finished speaking, a black hole suddenly appeared above the pure white room, and a man in a pajamas was rushed down. He spun his body, and the almost tangible magic glow flickered around him. The man finally stopped spinning. He gasped and asked, "You were recommended by Ancient One, right?" Shenyan looked at him and took out the gem. "If this is what you mean by recommendation, and she is a baldhead who is particularly difficult to get along with, then yes." The man shuddered and said hurriedly, "You'd better not talk about her hair here, young man. Even if you have a good relationship with her, don't say that." The last person who made a joke about her hair because he was a little familiar with her is still being thrown out and counting stars. Shenyan shrugged. The man responded with a serious look. He suddenly realized that he was wearing a bathrobe, so he performed another magic trick, changed into a solemn black robe, and said to Shenyan, "Welcome to the White Tower Council. This is a common shelter for all cross-border mages. You can trade and learn with others here. If there is a conflict with others, we neither encourage nor oppose you to duel with others. Please note that not all mages are humanoid, so please be sure to restrain your curiosity and research impulse." Shenyan listened with interest to the first few words. Until the end, he felt something was wrong the more he listened. It sounded like he was reciting from a script. This guess was confirmed after the man yawned. He finished his last sentence. "Anyway, welcome to the White Tower Council. Also, if you get into trouble outside, don't say you have anything to do with us. Even if you do, we won't admit it, unless someone else gets in trouble with you first. That's all?" "That's all." The man nodded affirmatively. He stretched out his hand and said, "You can call me." Shenyan blinked. He was not sure if this guy was joking with him or if his name was really a meaningless elongated sound. The man was also stunned. He said it again, "Damn it, that stupid administrator. My name has been blocked by the White Tower again." He said to Shenyan, "You just wait here for a while. The job of a newcomer guide is very popular. Someone should come to take you to visit the White Tower soon. Now, I have something to do." After that, he flew away from the black hole angrily. As he said, less than a minute after he left, a light spot flew down from the black hole. It was white, with a pair of fluffy pink cat ears on its head. The light flew in front of Shenyan and patted him politely with its mental tentacles. Shenyan allowed the touch and began to communicate with it. "Hello, newcomer. You can call me Zion. Also, it's not that I don't want to tell you my full name, but the full name of our race cannot be revealed. I hope you can understand that." A newcomer thought I was insulting him by not saying my full name. To Shenyan's surprise, the voice of this supposedly genderless light in his mind was a gentle female voice. "Hello, Zion. My name is Shenyan." "Hello, Shenyan." She read his name word by word, and then said, "Well, let me see. Oh, the one who was originally in charge of you was Mr. Dash. Oh, I see." He posted a blind date post on the new magic section on the intranet again, and the administrator should have blocked his name again. Shenyan smiled awkwardly. Anyway, that's it. You don't have to care about him, as long as you don't mention topics like partners. Mr. Dash is still easy to talk to." Zaya flashed twice, and then the pure white room began to change rapidly, and a towering tree appeared in front of Shenyan. Zaya said, "This is the White Tower. Well, let me think about it. The information says that you are from an Earth-like civilization. This is the elevator of the White Tower. You can go to various different places according to those branches. The place we are going to now is the room assigned to you." "Wait, Miss Zion, I have a question. Do you know Ancient One?" Zaya led him the way, and the two flew on the top of the giant tree. Many wizards flew past them, some in human or animal form, and some with red skin and horns like demons. He also saw many spots of light like Zion. "Yes, she knows you. She is very famous here. She is your recommender, right?" "Yes. What's the matter?" "Well, Mr. Although it may not be a good thing to say, but you may be very busy in the next period of time." "Busy?" "Yes." Shenyan raised his eyebrows and said, "Is it related to Ancient One?" Zaya laughed awkwardly twice. She seemed to notice Shenyan's expressionless face and said, "This is called polite laughter in Earth-like civilization. Am I using it wrong?" "No problem." Zaya breathed a sigh of relief. She flashed again and said, "Then I am relieved. Miss Ancient One is indeed related to this matter, but you can rest assured that they should not do anything to you, right? You make me feel very insecure, Shenyan thought expressionlessly. Zaya stopped in front of a branch that stretched out. Shenyan looked up and saw that the branch seemed endless. Even with far-sighted eyes, he couldn't see the end. In the distance, there was only a horizon that flashed with soft white light. This is it. Now I will explain to you the detailed composition of the White Tower Council. Make up for yesterday's missed update. Chapter 81. It's really immoral. Immoral. After Zia finished speaking, a beam of white light descended from the sky, illuminating the branches in front of them. A blue door appeared out of thin air and stood in front of them. It made a buzzing sound and then opened by itself. Shenyan looked up and saw a blank space, like a comic book frame that had not yet been colored. Noticing his eyes, Zaya flashed twice again, and her voice sounded in Shenyan's mind. The default condition of the room is like this. Generally speaking, few people will choose to live in the tower permanently, unless you're someone like Mr. You can modify this room according to your preferences. It's all up to you. The White Tower Council is very free most of the time. Although we have the title of a council, there are actually no meetings to be held. You can wander around here according to your preferences. The elevator in the White Tower, which is the tree you just saw, can take you to various places. Just open the door and think about it. We basically have everywhere here. For example, if you want to drink, it will take you to a tavern opened by other people in the tower. But there is no guarantee that it will be a tavern that meets your aesthetic standards. If you really want to talk about it, we only have one rule. Really? Then I'm all ears. Don't be so serious. You just need to listen. Ahem. Wait, let me find the original text. The White Tower requires us to explain the original text to the newcomers. The cat ears on Zaya's head trembled twice. Shenyan looked at the pink plush cat ears with strange eyes. The ears released a huge magical light between the trembling, and his whole face turned white. Zaya screamed, sorry, I didn't mean it. Then, the light became more dazzling. Shenyan turned his face slightly, and after a moment, the light disappeared. Zaya floated in place. Her body flashed 5 times quickly, and turned into a color between red and pink. The lady held a piece of white paper with her mental tentacles and read to Shenyan awkwardly. The council will protect any cross-border wizard, regardless of whether you are a member of the council or not, regardless of your gender, race, concept of good and evil, whether you are an omnivore, a vegetarian or eat stones. Shenyan raised his hand to interrupt Zaya. He held his forehead and said weakly, okay, let's skip this part. Can you tell me where Guyi is now? Zaya turned back to white, but there was still some pink left. She said, no one can know the whereabouts of a member of the White Tower Council at will unless she wants to. You may need to submit an application to the intranet, so that when she returns to the council, the intranet will notify you. I would like to, but, Miss Zaya, Shenyan said expressionlessly, you haven't told me what the intranet is yet. Zaya turned pink again. Shenyan didn't change his room much. He just put a very comfortable dark purple recliner, and then lay on it and closed his eyes to rest, thinking about what he just learned from Zaya. The White Tower Council is nothing more than a place where cross-border mages gather together for warmth. It is very loose, but there are 2 points that make him curious. First, who founded this organization? Second, what is the definition of a cross-border mage? According to what Zaya said, he spread his mental power to the entire room. A strange, mechanical tentacle touched him. After getting his permission, Shenyan connected to the intranet. He planned to search for the knowledge he wanted on it. Moreover, maybe he could gain something else. Then, a blue light screen appeared in front of him, with 4 sections distributed on the 4 sides. They were today's news, miscellaneous talks, library, and transactions. There was also a blank search bar at the top. That's it. Very simple. Shenyan didn't rush to click it. He was thinking that the setting plane of this intranet was a little too consistent with the definition of a forum for Earthlings, so consistent that it was a little strange. Then, a notice popped up on the intranet, asking to imprint his mental fluctuations. Shenyan waited patiently for the process to complete, which took about 3 minutes, and then it was the same set, such as usernames and avatars. The wizard didn't care about these things at all. He typed his name into a bunch of garbled characters, and used the default black avatar, and then immediately started browsing. His curiosity was a little bit uncontrollable, even overshadowing his desire to talk to Ancient One about why she was resurrected when she wasn't dead. Shenyan clicked on today's news, and the first one was in bold red font. Another beating of the administrator of the month. Come quickly, slow, or you will miss it. Shenyan raised his eyebrows and clicked in. A video began to play. The man who was responsible for receiving him at the beginning was holding a wooden stick and chasing a black creature with 2 horns on its head. The gender could not be seen. The two did not use magic at all, but simply chased each other and fought in the street. Shenyan even saw that the black creature with 2 horns on its head, after dodging the man's swing of the stick, kicked the man in the stomach with a very experienced kick, kicking him several meters away. Shenyan watched the video patiently. He didn't see anything related to magic. There were only 2 people from beginning to end. No, one of them didn't seem to be a human. In short, it was just a person and a creature beating each other. He thought about it, and the video disappeared. Instead, there were a lot of comments. A person named the First Flame Demon of the Abyss commented, "Ha ha 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 ha, you old bastard, you got beaten. I told you not to post blind date posts on the intranet every day." An anonymous user below him replied to him, "You're not much better, poor guy. You only paid half the price when you came to the succubus house last time." Further down, the comments were basically of this type. They were all gloating, and the First Flame Demon of the Abyss never replied again after being scolded by the anonymous user. Some people with good intentions built hundreds of floors under his comment, all asking him when he would pay. One of them was replied by the anonymous user because he built more than 10 floors, saying that he could get a 20% discount if he went. Succubus house? The mage's expression became strange. He returned to the main page and searched for these 3 words. Instantly, a large number of disgusting pictures and videos appeared in front of him. Shenyan clicked on one of them without changing his expression, and exited it with a mysterious smile 10 minutes later, and clicked on another one. He wanted to investigate and criticize this place, which was too immoral. To be honest, if there really was such a place, I would also criticize it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82. Who doesn't want a giant, cool robot as a collectible? If the mage's perception was correct, he finished browsing after 2 hours. After exiting the search page, Shenyan rubbed his facial muscles that had become a little stiff due to smiling for a long time, and searched for another 2 words, Ancient One. To his surprise, these 2 words were listed as banned words. Shenyan was silent. He didn't know what Ancient One had done here to make his name a banned word, but he knew one thing very well: the bald woman would never tell him. Okay, let's check something else. He muttered to himself and searched for the definition of a cross-border mage. No posts appeared, only a short sentence appeared on the blue light screen. Cross-border mage refers to a mage who relies on his own abilities to break through the barriers of the world and travel around the world. It's the same as saying nothing. The mage tapped his fingers on the armrest of the recliner. He thoughtfully turned to search for the Earth-like civilization that Zaya talked about. This time the information provided was much more detailed. It refers to the various different worlds developed on the basis of human civilization. Some are good at magic, and some are good at technology. The moral level is usually average, with some shining individuals and some extremely evil individuals. This civilization is famous for producing a large number of wizards, and the strength of individuals fluctuates greatly. If you want to study humans, please carefully consider whether you can defeat the Ancient One or other strong people from Earth-like civilizations. Otherwise, the intranet does not recommend you to conduct this dangerous experiment. Currently, 1,423 Earth-like civilization worlds have been discovered. The technological development and magic development of each world are different. Some are even very extreme, with only magic or only technology. Some have both. The Earth-like civilization world with the highest known technological development level is numbered C1789K5. The magic development of this world is also unique. Note: the numbering system of the White Tower Council is unique. If you don't understand this, please go to the intranet library for inquiries. Note 2. This world is extremely dangerous. It is not recommended for any wizard to go there alone. This world has a special space called the subspace. Once again, we reiterate that we do not recommend any wizard to go there alone. If you want to know about C1789K5, please go to the library to check. The number of the Earth-like civilization world with the highest level of magic development known so far has been hidden. Please do not use any means to explore it. If you violate this, you will be expelled from the White Tower Council once discovered. Thank you for your cooperation. Shenyan pondered for a while and searched again. There is no Earth-like civilization with any extraordinary power. This time, the record given by the intranet was 0. None. He sighed, not surprised. The road home is long and arduous. Fortunately, he will not be wiped out of his humanity because of being too bored. Shenyan returned to the main page, clicked on the library area, and began to search for information about the two worlds he had visited. This time, he also found nothing. He changed several keywords but could not find anything. At this time, a notification popped up on the intranet: if you discover a new world and are willing to submit it, the intranet will give you a reward. No, I think I'd better forget it. Shenyan didn't know what would happen after he submitted it, but he knew that judging from the loose organization of the White Tower Council, not all of its members were normal people. There were also lunatics who were keen on destroying the world. After all, to join the council, you only need a recommender. He ignored the message and returned to today's news, intending to observe the daily lives of the council members. It doesn't matter if he doesn't read it, but when he saw it, his eyes widened immediately. The headline just now had disappeared, and now there was a post with a super bold red letter as the title: Recommender Guyi, we have a new member. Shenyan quickly clicked in, and the first thing that caught his eye was his photo, with Zai and him flying on the towering tree. The photographer was very polite and mosaiced Zai, but Shenyan didn't mosaic it at all. His face was clearly photographed. The poster's ill intentions were even transmitted to him through the text. According to reliable gossip, this handsome male human wizard has some unclear relationship with our respected Ancient One. At least since she joined the White Tower Council for so long, this is the only new member she recommended. Ladies and gentlemen, genderless robot warg demon. He is now in the White Tower. The first commenter was still the first fire demon of the abyss. He commented, if your massage skills were half as good as your photography skills, your store would not have closed down. The poster, a person named Poo Massage Maniac, replied to him, shut up, you damn flaming bastard. How do you want me to massage you? Isn't my store closed down because you sent 574 reports to the intranet? Then, the two of them quarreled for hundreds of posts about this matter, and there were some people who fanned the flames just to watch the fun. Shenyan skipped this post and scrolled down. The comments were not interesting. I bet he looks great in a suit. It's better not to wear one. I think he must have a great figure. Don't be so blunt. The one upstairs, the administrator, is on patrol. I'm the administrator. Apart from these psychopaths who are infatuated with strangers for no reason, there are only some people who are advertising. For example, a guy called Robot Fanatic posted a picture of a huge robot standing in a ruin, with the photon blade in his hand emitting a scarlet light. This person commented, if you need a handsome robot from the technological world as a collection, please contact me in private. Our store provides various enchantment options, including but not limited to the following. Is a long string of words that are difficult to express. If it were really written, the book would have been censored on the spot. Only one anonymous user really caught Shenyan's attention. This person left a message, very good, I have memorized his face. Then he sent something such as dragon hearts to the poster Poo Massage Maniac using the intranet function. Poo Massage Maniac thanked him very politely, but the first flame demon of the abyss did not let him go and actually chased him and scolded him. Shenyan thought that these two people must be immortals, and only immortals would be so boring. He turned back to look at the anonymous user, and was once again distressed that his teacher was Guyi. It is said that teachers are there to protect their students from disasters, so why is it the other way around for him? Chapter 83 A Special Duel. But he didn't take the anonymous person's words too seriously. According to the rules of the White Tower Council, there is only one way for two wizards to fight in the tower, that is, a street fight between Mr. and the Black Man with horns, without any magic or spells, relying only on physical strength. There is no technical content, and it is not even fair. For example, Shenyan can already imagine what it would be like for a human to fight with a fire demon. Although it is strictly forbidden to harm life, it is certain to hurt. And his own wizard lowered his head and looked at his hands, smiled indifferently. Come on, come on. If you lose, it's not his people who will lose, it's the people of Kamartaj fighting technique and the people of Ancient One who will lose. He was going to continue to browse the forum happily as a fun person, not feeling that his behavior was no different from those immortal species he just despised. But at this moment, the intranet reminded him that someone was waiting outside his door. The corner of Shenyan's eye twitched. So fast! He quickly used the function provided by the intranet to look outside. A black-haired elf with wheat-colored skin was standing outside his door with an impatient look on her face. The elf was dressed very boldly. She was neither wearing a robe nor any casual clothes. She had a black leather collar full of spikes hanging around her neck. She was wearing a short black sleeveless top, which had very beautiful lines, and also revealed her toned forearms and a thin waist with tight muscles. She was wearing a pair of very slim jeans and black boots, which exposed her beautiful figure. Shenyan's expression became strange again. He had to admit that this elf was very beautiful and full of wild beauty, but this dress was not elf-like at all. He stood up, and with a thought, the door opened. The elf walked in with her long legs. She walked very quickly, and her every move was full of a special charm. In the blink of an eye, she was in front of Shenyan. The elf said bluntly, "You are the new member, right? The one recommended by Guyi?" Shenyan nodded. The elf grinned. Her voice was like a spring, but the words she said were not pleasant at all, and even had a bit of a gangster temperament. "That's good. Come with me. Let's have a fight in the square of the parliament, and this matter will be over." A notification was sent from the intranet, a duel application. Shenyan glanced at it. The general meaning was that the winner would be decided after passing. That is, one party could not use any magic power before admitting defeat or losing the ability to act, and the violator would automatically be judged as the loser, and would be listed in the section of today's news, on the shame list for 100 years. Do I know you?" The elf shook her head. "Is that because you hate humans?" She shook her head again, and said impatiently, "Don't pretend. I don't believe you can't see that I came to you because of Ancient One. Hurry up. If you are a man, come to the square with me to fight." After saying this, she asked in a low voice with some concern, You are a man, right?" Shenyan was a little amused. On the one hand, he really liked the appearance of this elf. There was nothing he was afraid to admit. Who doesn't judge people by their appearance? Secondly, although he didn't mind fighting with her, it was somewhat inappropriate in the square. He was not interested in close combat with a beautiful woman in public. Shenyan said tactfully, "I am a man, and I don't mind fighting with you. To be honest, I am even looking forward to it. But in the square? Excuse me, forget it." The elf frowned, and she hugged her chest unhappily, and the lines became more beautiful. "Then fight here, but I want to record it, okay?" Shenyan smiled. "No offense, but why are you so confident that you can beat me?" The elf also laughed, and two shallow dimples appeared on her mouth, and her sharp canine teeth were also exposed. "You will know if you try." "Okay." The mage shrugged. He took off his robe, revealing the close-fitting white shirt inside, unbuttoned it bit by bit, and threw it on the chair beside him. By the way, he also accepted the duel application. The elf's eyes lit up and she whistled. She touched her right ear, played with the earring on it, and said with a smile, "You have a good figure, quite strong. It will feel good when we fight later." Shenyan, who had just performed the opening move of Kamartaj, paused for a moment. He said helplessly, "Are you here to fight or to flirt? Why can't it be both?" The elf's voice sounded in his ears, like a whisper. No, it was a whisper. Shenyan's pupils shrank slightly, and he immediately lowered his waist to avoid the powerful kick that flew past his ear. The elf landed lightly behind him and jumped twice. In that beautiful swaying, she smiled murderously and clenched her fist. The elf took a step forward and swung her right fist. Shenyan almost didn't react. He blocked it with his left hand and immediately felt a soreness. He slapped the fist away and threw a backhand straight punch, hitting the elf's face, but she didn't even break the skin. Not bad. I'm beginning to be interested in you. Keep going. The elf pulled away from him, said with a smile, then shouted angrily, bent down, and rushed towards his waist. Shenyan realized what she wanted to do when she took that posture. It was nothing more than grappling him. If she succeeded, she could use many methods to throw him to the ground. No matter which one, he would lose his ability to move immediately. He didn't intend to let the elf win so easily. The mage immediately stepped back, saw her posture, and lowered his waist, ready to take the grapple and restrict her to see if he could counter-suppress her. Seeing this scene, the elf showed a smile of success at the corner of her mouth. As she rushed forward, she slid and shoveled, not only avoiding the mage's counter-grab, but also using a sweeping kick to kick him to the ground. The elf did not hesitate, bullied him, and immediately rode on Shenyan's belly to suppress him. Her weight was not heavy, but not light either. Without magic power, Shenyan would not be able to break free in a short time with his own strength. He protected his head while gritting his teeth to prepare for the upcoming blow. Who knew it was not a powerful punch? Shenyan felt a tingling sensation in his right earlobe. He turned his head and saw the elf lying on him, biting his ear with a sly smile. The mage was stunned. This small mistake made his head-holding defensive posture ineffective. The elf immediately swung his right fist and hit Shenyan. He quickly came to his senses and continued to defend, looking for opportunities to counterattack. The next two updates are still being compiled. In addition, how many people like black-skinned elves? Chapter 84. You asked for this. The elf's continuous attack lasted for a while. She was very experienced and had good physical strength, but if she didn't use magic, she would always be found an opportunity, and Shenyan seized this opportunity. Her left punch was a little slow, and Shenyan immediately swung his body to avoid it, preparing to drag her into a ground battle, and the elf immediately got up and left slidably. She smiled and said, "Come on, it's been 5 minutes since the beginning, and you seem to have been beaten all the time." "I remember." Shenyan also stood up, licked his lips, and said with a smile, "I think I hit you once." "Then let's try to see if you can hit the second punch." The elf's voice fell, and she rushed towards Shenyan again. She changed her fighting style and used standard boxing. Shenyan didn't know where she learned it from, but it was very aggressive, and her height and long arms combined with the technique were very beautiful. Not to mention the lethality. Don't think that elves are weak just because they are very beautiful. For Shenyan, he couldn't find any countermeasures for a while. In boxing, it's like this when facing someone taller than you and with longer arms. To be fair, Shenyan is not short. He is 1.87 meters tall, but that is for humans, not for elves. According to his visual estimation, the height of this elf should reach 2 meters, and the physical fitness of elves is also better than that of humans. Various factors have caused him to have no advantage on the ground and even less advantage in standing. Shenyan's face was gloomy, and his competitive spirit had been ignited, and now it was burning in his chest. Of course, some other factors were not ruled out. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, the elf took a big step in the continuous small steps of trial, and this step immediately shortened the distance that she had originally controlled well. Reaching Shenyan's striking range, he didn't hesitate, and immediately swung a right straight punch, hitting the elf's right face firmly, knocking her back a step. The elf laughed again. She rubbed her face and stood there and said, "Natalia Carroll." Shenyan put down his hands and panted. Such a high-intensity confrontation was very physically demanding, which was indeed the case for humans. And Natalia seemed to be far from reaching her limit. For a human, you fought well. If you admit defeat now, I will consider not uploading this video to the intranet. Are you kidding? Come again. Shenyan put up his boxing stance again. He no longer used Kamar-Taj martial arts. Since she wanted to use boxing, then use boxing. You asked for this. Don't say I didn't warn you. Natalia rushed over again after she finished speaking. Her starting move this time was beyond the wizard's expectations. It had nothing to do with boxing. Kicking is not allowed in boxing. Relying on her long legs, she kicked the wizard's head with a fierce high kick. Shenyan saw that he couldn't dodge in time, so he immediately gritted his teeth and resisted with his left hand. With a dull thud, he was kicked back several meters, but it wasn't over yet. Natalia approached again and kicked him in the abdomen with her leg. Shenyan blocked it with both hands. Since you don't plan to play boxing, I don't have to abide by the rules of the game anymore. He tightened his waist, exerted strength from the core, grabbed her feet, and dragged her back with force. Natalia fell to the ground firmly. Shenyan immediately wanted to go up and punch her again. He didn't care whether hitting a woman was a violation of male ethics. He had to teach her a lesson even if the opponent was a bastard girl. But Natalia rolled over immediately, causing Shenyan's fist to miss. Her beautiful short black hair was scattered on her forehead, with a messy beauty. The elf seemed to be happier and happier. She stood up and smiled and made a complicated gesture to Shenyan. I don't know what that means, Shenyan said expressionlessly. He raised his thumb. I only know this, and then raised his middle finger. And this. What does that mean? Guess. The elf laughed out loud. She teased. Alas, Ancient One is lucky to have you as his apprentice. How about telling her that? I would like to, but she's not here. The elf combed her hair, pulled off the collar around her neck and threw it aside. Fine beads of sweat flowed down her slender neck. So you come to trouble me? The wizard didn't know what she was doing, but he really needed a break, so he just followed the conversation. Yes, why not? She admitted it very readily, and suddenly lay down without any defense. Her beautiful curves spread out, still with a breathtaking charm. The whole person's figure was exposed at a glance. Shenyan narrowed his eyes, trying not to look too rude. What do you mean? I thought you wanted to fight me until the winner is decided. Natalia laughed. Her black hair spread out and spread on the white ground. The whole person looked like a painting. The elf lazily wiped the fine beads of sweat on her forehead and waved her finger at him. Yes, the condition of the duel is until one party loses the ability to move, but we seem to have another way to achieve the goal. At this point, even a fool would know what she wanted to do. Are you serious? Shenyan raised his eyebrows. She didn't say anything, just looked at him with her blue eyes. You asked for it, the wizard said. You asked for it. Natalia left this sentence and left with a smile, not forgetting to close the door. Don't ask how long it took. Even if you ask, I don't know. Anyway, Natalia left Shenyan's room very happily, left him her personal contact information, and agreed to fight again when she was free. Shenyan was lying on his recliner, rubbing his waist with a grin on his face. His back was covered with scratches and there were a few ambiguous bruises on his neck. Shenyan lost. And it was natural. After all, how could human flesh compare to that of elves? Natalia said that she would not make the video public. She blinked very ambiguously when she said this. Shenyan knew what she was hinting at, but he kept a straight face and deliberately did not think about it. The elf scratched his chest with her fingernails before leaving. Shenyan shook his head. Elves are really dangerous, in every aspect. He forced himself to put this special experience deep in his mind and no longer think about it. It was just a date that was consensual, although the way it started was a little special. The ending was good. Shenyan opened the intranet again, and the blue light curtain unfolded again. The mage's black eyes reflected blue light. He opened the chat area. The name fits the definition very well. Everything can be discussed here, from racial jokes to gossip, from teaching you how to fly a plane to how to turn a computer case into an enchanting table. He was a little overwhelmed. Chapter 85 Space Oddity. After closing the chat area, he opened the trading area. There was everything here, but nothing he needed. To be honest, the precious materials had been sold long ago, and most of the things that were still hanging here were very strange things, or simply some scammers were hanging some garbage to cheat the unlucky people. There is a typical example of strange things, such as the one below. Who would need a multifunctional fully automatic nose hair plucking machine? Shenyan didn't know who needed it, but he still read the post. The poster was an anonymous user. It seems that 9 out of 10 people who post here will choose to be anonymous. This person described the machine like this: "This item has a long criminal record and is suspected to have given birth to its own soul. I don't know much about its structure. Through the tracing spell, I learned that it has murdered a total of 17 previous owners in the 45 years since it was manufactured and put into use. Each time, it used a blade that suddenly grew out to cut the owner's throat after shaving the nose hair. If you want to study the soul and are still a novice, I highly recommend you to buy it. Of course, if you just want to experience the feeling of having your nose hair shaved by a crazy killing machine, you can try it. The experience is actually not bad." Let's get back to the topic. I don't want to sell this thing too expensive. Interested buyers, please trade with me for some small items. This way you won't feel too bad when you break it. The wizard nodded. He was an honest man. He rubbed his neck. The bruises were still reminding him. The wizard couldn't help but recall that special battle. Natalia's legs were really long and strong, and her ears were red, which was also very cute. He couldn't help but smile, but it disappeared in the next second. He flipped the page and saw another object. It was a wrinkled human skin book. On the cover was an ugly human face with its mouth wide open and eyes tightly closed, as if it was screaming. As expected, it was another anonymous user. Although this object was useless, his description was very interesting. "This is a broken book that I found while traveling around the world and picking up garbage. It is useless. If you really want to buy it, be sure to cast a spell like mental protection on yourself before picking it up. Otherwise don't blame me for not reminding you. The only use is to make the person who picks it up scream something that will make other people feel very disgusting. I don't know much about spiritual studies, so I don't know if there's a soul in it. Anyway, if you are interested, just buy it. You can exchange it for some minerals or small items that you think match the value of this thing." Shenyan noticed that most of the transactions of the mages in the parliament were conducted through barter. He flipped the page and seemed to be immersed in it. Some of the things in the trading area were interesting, while others were either pure garbage or the discoverers themselves didn't know what they were and wanted to cheat the fool. One of the guys seemed to be a repeat offender. His sentence habits were even recorded. Whenever he posted a new post, he would be attacked. Shenyan looked through it and found that this guy was really a business genius. He exchanged a used Coke for 2 magic essences. Shenyan saw someone selling a takeaway pizza box. The guy described it seriously, saying that he picked it up during his world travels and that it could make people realize any wish. Another person was selling a pair of headphones, which were said to allow you to listen to any music you want. This thing caught his attention. Shenyan clicked on the post and the seller attached a picture. It was a crimson headset, wireless, and a brand that he was very familiar with, starting with S. "Interesting," the mage muttered to himself and sent a transaction request to the seller. The other party quickly accepted it. The blue light curtain unfolded and stretched, and standing opposite was a human figure with a dark body and abnormally slender limbs. There were no eyes, but Shenyan knew it was looking at him. The creature made an unpleasant hissing sound from its mouth. After the translation on the intranet, Shenyan knew that it was saying, "Are you sure you really want to buy that headset?" "Yes, but it has no other use except listening to music. I just put it on for fun." The dark creature was a little surprised. "But if someone wanted to buy it, why not sell it?" it asked again. "What do you want to exchange with me?" Shenyan pondered for a while, took out a teapot from his magic backpack, placed it on the light curtain, and it was in the hands of the dark creature in an instant. Shenyan introduced, "This teapot has no other use. If you infuse it with magic power once a day, you can drink any flavor of tea you want." "Well, do you know tea?" the dark creature hissed and said, "Yes, I have drunk it." "Then, deal." It also sent the headset over. Shenyan took the headset and said goodbye to the other party. He waved his hand to disperse the light curtain and began to fiddle with the headset. The magic power swept over its mechanical components and found no traces of magic. It really seemed to be just an ordinary pair of headphones. This thing didn't look special. He weighed it in his hand, put it on, pressed the button on the side, and heard a beep in his ear. Shenyan followed the seller's instructions and began to think about the songs he had heard before. The earphones made a buzzing sound, which became higher and higher. The noisy sound of electricity flashed by, followed by the sound of cars passing by, the sound of horns, the sound of subways and distorted human voices. He also heard a woman humming softly, as if singing a lullaby. The baby's crying gradually disappeared under her gentleness and turned into the sound of steady sleeping breathing. He also heard a man in a bar scolding his boss to the bartender because he lost his job. The bar poured him a glass of iced whiskey. The sound of the ice hitting the wall of the glass and the whimpering in his throat seemed so in sync, like the prelude to a tragic song. The man picked up the whiskey and drank it all. They mixed together, and each seemed clear. There are all kinds of things in the world, and they are all different. Then, they all disappeared at a certain point in time. Then, the gentle prelude of David Bowie's classic song Space Oddity that Shenyan had heard many times began to sound. The gentle sound of rain accompanied by drums and guitar gradually became louder and louder, until his recognizable voice sounded in Shenyan's ears again. At this moment, David Bowie's voice crossed countless worlds and countless times and reached his ears. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. Please vote I will enter the next world after the update tomorrow. Chapter 86 Quarrel. Shenyan was playing with a pair of scissors in his hand. They were pitch black and not very long. After his test, the scissors were very sharp, but they looked rusty, even though there was no rust on the surface. He also exchanged this gadget in the trading area. He exchanged a paperback novel that he had put in his magic backpack a long time ago for a Lego brick that could make people feel pain. Then he exchanged this Lego brick for a bottle of used high-end mineral water, which made people feel rich. Finally, he exchanged the used high-end mineral water for the scissors. The barter trading area is indeed a place where crouching tigers and hidden dragons are hidden. He threw the scissors on the ground and started to do his business. He had touched enough fish, and if he touched more, he would suffer the condemnation of his conscience. He opened the magic backpack. The silver-haired special elf was still sleeping. She had to eat several standard magic every day. Now she has grown a lot compared to when she was picked up, and she no longer looks so immature. Shenyan just hoped that she would wake up soon. It was really uncomfortable to carry a living thing in his backpack, and he didn't find any information about this elf race in the library. Ignoring her, Shenyan took out the green gem. It was lying quietly in the wizard's hand at this time, losing all its previous magic, just like an ordinary gem. But when Shenyan poured magic power into it, the situation became different. It began to emit green light, projecting a green light curtain in the air in front, and some chaotic images began to emerge on it. The first was a man holding a star shield. He was covered in wounds, and his left hand had completely disappeared from the elbow. He stood in the ruins of the city. A huge laser beam passed over his head and smashed a residential building behind him directly. The flying debris killed many ordinary people who were fleeing at a very fast speed. The man saw this scene. His eyes were bloodshot, but he was cut in half by a huge blade in the next second. His internal organs fell to the ground, and the man who was still conscious raised his head and wanted to say something, but the attacker just crushed his head with one foot. The scarred shield was picked up by a huge hand and easily rolled into a ball. Shenyan watched the video patiently. He didn't say anything. His eyes were calm, and it was hard to guess what he was thinking. The green screen began to play a new video. This time the protagonist of the video was a young man wearing a spider-like outfit, swinging between high-rise buildings. His mask was half broken, and the exposed left half of his cheek was horrible. The flesh had been worn flat, and even some bones were exposed. But he didn't seem to care, just flexibly dodging in the air to avoid the beam attacks flying towards him. However, human power is limited. In order to save a mother holding a child, he was directly hit by a beam of light. His entire right calf was vaporized in an instant. The young man's exposed left eye instantly widened, but he didn't let out a cry of pain. He just quickly swung away on the spider silk and put the mother on another relatively safe street. The child thanked him, and the childish words in a baby voice made him smile a little. "Spider-Man, people said you disappeared. I knew you would come back." "Yes, child, I will come back." His brown hair came out from the broken mask. The child's mother had tears in her eyes. She looked at the half of the young man's face. He looked so young. Suddenly she hugged him. "Thank you for coming back to save us, Spider. She couldn't finish the second half of her sentence. A beam of light fell from the sky and vaporized the mother and her child. Spider-Man stood there blankly, with some flying ashes in his hands. He held them in his hands, opened his mouth, and couldn't even make a sad roar. This video ended here. Shenyan still had no expression on his face, but his fingers on the armrest of the recliner were tapping faster and faster. "What do you want to show me?" Shenyan said to himself. He knew that Guyi was trying to show him something, but she just wouldn't make it clear, and Shenyan didn't know whether she wanted to say it but didn't, or wanted to say it but couldn't. He hoped it was the latter. "You know, if you want to enter someone else's room, you have to knock on the door first." He suddenly said something without any context. Next to him, a bald woman in a light yellow robe was sitting on a chair, looking at him with a smile. "Don't laugh," Shenyan said coldly. "Why?" Guyi didn't seem angry either. She still smiled and said, "Because you don't even want to make it clear, and you don't even want to talk to me face to face with your real body." This sentence is very interesting. How do you know I'm not your real body? Guyi put her hand on Shenyan's right hand, and the warmth of her palm was transmitted to the back of his hand. Shenyan looked at her, and he had to admit that he was a little surprised. "I won't apologize unless you explain yourself clearly. Don't be so impatient. You still can't change this habit after so many years. It's better than being a riddle man." Guyi produced a cup of hot tea from somewhere. She took a sip and said slowly, "What you just saw is a possibility." "Possibility?" "Yes, this is a possibility after you left them. One of the thousands of branches." Shenyan's tone was flat, but not pleasant. "So, you mean, it's my fault?" "No," Guyi said firmly, with some pain in her green eyes. "It's my fault. Everyone makes mistakes when they are young. Some people are lucky and they still have a chance to make up for it. Some people don't. Like me." "I understand you, Shenyan. It is human nature to yearn to return home, but they need you, and I have been excluded from the world. Except for you, no one can help them." The wizard stood up from the chair. He looked at Ancient One deeply and smiled sarcastically. "Save yourself from your moral kidnapping, Ancient One. If you really love your world as much as you said, you would not make the decision. Now that you are excluded from the world, you want me to go back and protect them for thousands of years in your place? I'm not the damn supreme sorcerer." He pointed at himself and said, "Look carefully, Ancient One. I'm just a wanderer, a homeless person. When I learned magic from you, I made it very clear that I just wanted to go home. And after you left, I believe that everything I have done is enough to repay your kindness in teaching me. You obviously have a way to cross the world. You joined this mysterious cross-border wizard organization, but you never told me. Now I come here by myself, and I finally have a little possibility of going back. You found me again and told me that the world needs you. Yes, I understand. You love your world so much that you are willing to deceive your disciples, kill thousands of innocent people, and make deals with evil gods. But, I am very curious, Ancient One, is there a place in your heart where you have a little regret? Regret for teaching me too well? After all, if that were the case, I would really take your place and protect your world with Strange forever. Isn't that what you want?" Chapter 87 Crossover. Guyi's face turned pale. She wanted to say something. She opened her mouth to say something, but was interrupted by Shenyan. "Don't make that expression. It looks like I'm the bad guy. I've wanted to ask you these questions for a long time, but I just didn't say them. Tell me, the greatest supreme wizard, the powerful wizard who has a great reputation in the White Tower Council and even his name has become a banned word, respected Mr. Guyi." He deliberately said a long list of exaggerated titles, making Guyi's expression more and more ugly, and this is exactly what he wanted. "Sometimes, hurting others does make you feel happy. Why do you keep lying to me?" Guyi was silent. She lowered her head, unable to say anything. At this moment, no matter how exquisite the words are, they are pale. No matter what she said, it can't cover up what she has done. If Shenyan had never known the truth, perhaps the special master-disciple relationship between them would have continued. But the truth is often more hurtful than lies. "Speak up. Aren't you the best at deceiving others with lies? You fooled everyone and everyone thought you were dead. But in fact, you just left the world to rest, right? Traveling between worlds and seeing all kinds of new things. I have only experienced 2 worlds, and I have fallen in love with this special feeling. What about you? She remained silent. Speak up, he Shenyan roared, and he grabbed the teacup in Guyi's hand and threw it to the ground. The fragments and scalding water splashed all over the floor, and were cleaned up by the automatic cleaning function of the room. Guyi's hands were clenched tightly and turned white. After vending, he Shenyan calmed down. He lay back on the recliner again, and his tone was flat as if he was facing a stranger. Let me make it clear, Guyi. In my mind, your image has become that of a liar. And I don't know if you have anticipated my current reaction, so you deliberately acted like this to let me vent. You know me too well. You know that after vending, I will definitely choose to go back and save them. This is why you came here, right? Guyi finally spoke, but the content had nothing to do with what he Shenyan said. World travel. It's actually very simple. You have mastered the method of breaking boundaries and have the qualifications. The next thing you have to do is to officially become a cross-boundary wizard. You only need to touch the boundary stone of the White Tower to complete the process. After that, you can use the intranet to travel to the world recorded in the White Tower. You can also choose to roam, go to some undiscovered worlds, and write down their coordinates. Only you know, and only you can go to this world, unless you share the coordinates. Don't change the subject. He Shenyan didn't appreciate it. Guyi smiled sadly. Her beautiful face made such an expression that was indeed heartbreaking, but in he Shenyan's eyes, it only made him feel disgusted. Guyi said, "You are right. I have no right to ask you to do anything. Shenyan, I apologize." Too late. Leave. I don't want to see you again. I will go back to save them, just like I have done countless times before, but not because of your request. Remember this, because I want to. Maybe I am such a stupid person, willing to pay for people in other worlds, or maybe you accepted me as your apprentice because of this. Guyi had already walked to the door, and she said something softly before leaving. He Shenyan didn't hear it clearly, or maybe he actually heard it clearly, but just deliberately forgot it. But in any case, the truth has been buried in the wind, and time will take away everything, and people are often more willing to believe lies than the truth. Don't blame them, just because the truth is too hurtful. Guyi left, and before leaving, she left a world coordinate. Light blue fluorescent characters floated in the air. He Shenyan memorized them silently and then erased them. He walked out of the door, and the scene changed rapidly. He did not choose to fly to see the towering tree of the White Pagoda. He directly used the intranet's teleportation function and came to the vicinity of the crossing stone. This is a round, huge white stone, and no one is guarding it. It is just thrown on the branches casually. It looks ordinary. He Shenyan put his hand on it, and a strange numbness spread throughout his body. The feeling of integrating into the world barrier before came back, but this time, it was much stronger. He groaned, and his eyes turned into pure black. He later learned that everyone saw different things when they officially became cross-border mages, and these scenes were all kinds of strange. Some people even interviewed the cross-border mages, and made a weird video based on their experience and threw it on the forum of All Realms to sell. He made a lot of money, and then was hunted down by some mages who came for a long time. What did he Shenyan see? I can't tell you, but he stood there in a daze for half an hour before he came to his senses. The mage looked at his hands, and he suddenly had a strange, eager urge. This strange urge was running rampant in his heart, and he needed to release it urgently. His forehead bulged with blue veins, and he fell to his knees. The 2 mages passing by in the sky were used to this, but they still stopped. One of them shouted to he Shenyan, "Don't hesitate, just choose a coordinate. Our first time is like this." He Shenyan gritted his teeth and silently repeated the coordinates given by Guyi in his mind. The urge suddenly disappeared. Before the mage could sort out this feeling, his magic power disappeared rapidly, as if it was swallowed into a black hole. Then, a burst of white light was released from his hands, and he disappeared just like that. The mage who shouted commented to his companion, "This guy did a pretty good job. He completed the crossover in a short time." "How long did it take us?" "It took me 3 days and you a month." "Really?" "Yes." The mage who shouted was silent for a while. He suddenly said, "Have you been taking Coach Natalia's boxing courses recently?" His companion was puzzled. "No, I haven't practiced for a long time, but I see her posts every day. What's the matter? The mage who shouted smiled. Very good, come with me to the boxing gym later. His companion shrugged. You are too petty, but, having said that, do you think that guy looks familiar? The mage who shouted frowned. He thought for a while and said, no. Why do you ask? Really? Maybe it's because I'm face blind. I always think that all humans look the same. The last time you went to the succubus gym, you ordered the most beautiful one. You are face blind. Succubus are not human, but they look the same. They gradually faded away in the conversation. Today's update is over. This volume is very short, just a transition. I will start updating Marvel tomorrow. It's rare for me to mention the theme in the 4th volume, although I'm always bad at naming. Well, I'll update 10,000 words tomorrow. Please vote. Chapter 88, The One Who Was Kicked Out of His Own Home. Steve Rogers walked out the door of his apartment and zipped up his thick jacket to the collar. February in New York was wet and cold. He walked quickly to the hot dog stand across the street and ordered a supersized hot dog. The boss greeted him as usual. Good morning, Mr. Rogers. Steve smiled and took out $5 from his pocket and handed it to the boss. You too, David. How's business lately? The boss replied while busy adding stuff to his food. Same old, sir. But, if you ask me, it seems like what they said on TV. Life has become more and more difficult since he disappeared. Steve took his hot dog, took a bite, savoring the familiar taste, glanced at the homeless man at the end of the street, and said, actually, nothing has changed, David. This place has always been like this. David noticed his eyes and forgot about the past. He sighed. I know that guy. He went bankrupt 2 months ago. My God, he used to work well in that beautiful office building, with good clothes and a good place to live. Who knew he would suddenly go bankrupt? Isn't he married? The court ruled that he was not qualified to raise the child, and his wife filed for divorce and took away all the money he had left. This guy must be crazy. Oh, Mr. Rogers, we fought off so many aliens, but how come we can't even take care of our own citizens? Steve's eyes were a little complicated, and he didn't say anything. A black man with an afro standing next to David spoke cynically, and his speed was very fast, because it has never been this country that saves the world. Old David, when you have time, read more news from other countries. Don't watch those damn TVs all day long. Our TV channels are all brainwashing you. This damn government is rotten and hopeless. David quickly pretended to be scared. Oh, watch your words, buddy. I don't want to be visited by the FBI the next day. In the gap between their conversation, Steve left. He walked slowly to the corner of the street. The homeless man was wrapped in a thin blanket and lying on the corrugated cardboard, shivering from the cold. Seeing Steve standing in front of him, he whispered, I don't have anything for you to take, sir. If you want this blanket, take it too, at least don't hit me. Steve gritted his teeth. He looked at the bruises on the man's face and his swollen right eye, and suddenly felt a nausea. He handed the homeless man the oversized hot dog that he had only taken a bite of. The homeless man didn't believe him at first, thinking he was playing a prank on him, but Steve's unwavering hand seemed to tell him something. He grabbed the hot dog and gobbled it up. When he finished eating, he found that the man who gave him the hot dog had left. In front of him was a $10 bill, which was being blown by the cold wind and trembling slightly on the corrugated cardboard. Steve returned home. He took off his thick jacket, and looked at this apartment. The sufficient heating made him not feel cold even if he was only wearing a single layer of clothes inside, even though he could ignore this temperature many years ago. How are you these days, Captain? You're in good shape. Wearing only this little in this weather. A man's voice sounded in his living room. Steve looked coldly and saw a man in a suit and sunglasses walking out of his room. FBI? No. That means SHIELD. No. The man reached out from the lining of his suit and took out a certificate and handed it to Steve. It read, Special Human Security Directorate, Level 1 Agent, Seth Baylor. Steve looked up at him and did not hand the certificate back. You broke into my house without permission. What do you want to do? Oh, don't be nervous, Captain. I don't mean any harm. Seth quickly raised his hand. He smiled casually. Steve could see the gum in his mouth and the small camera on the right chest of his suit. The feeling of nausea came up again. According to the law, I have the right to kill you right now without any legal responsibility. Yes, but, legally speaking, you are a dead man, Captain. Seth smiled. He didn't seem to take Steve seriously, and even ignored his clenched fist. He pointed at Steve's right fist and clapped his hands in an exaggerated manner. Hey, Captain, you've done a good job in the gym. You have such obvious arm lines when you clench your fists. Do you mind telling me how you did it? I also want to work out recently, but I'm too busy with work. Do you understand? Clint Barton, Natasha Romanoff. He suddenly said two names. I'm really busy. Steve's tense expression suddenly relaxed. He exhaled. It was obvious that he was relaxing. But the words that came out of his lips were like the harshest frost. Get out of my house. Seth still had that disgusting smile on his face, and the amplitude was even getting bigger. He didn't care about Steve's threat and said, I'm afraid you don't have the right. This is my home. Yes, yes. This is Steve Rogers' home. But Steve Rogers died heroically a long time ago. You are just a lucky person with the same name, Captain. Oh, number. Mr. Rogers. Now, please leave the private apartment of our great Captain America, okay? Steve's face turned ugly. Although he had expected the degree of corruption in the U.S. government, he never thought that they could be so blatant. Now is not the time to have a conflict. Steve looked at Seth deeply, remembered his face, his height, and his voice, then turned around, took his jacket and opened the door, and the cold wind from outside poured in. Seth suddenly said, Hey, put down the captain's clothes, you thief. Didn't you hear me? That's Captain America's clothes. You bastard who came to his house uninvited and stole his clothes. Put down the jacket in your hand quickly, or I am going to shoot. He did what he said, and really pulled out a pistol from his waist and pointed it at Steve's head. Steve turned around, put on the jacket in front of Seth, and didn't say anything. Seth stared at his expression, suddenly laughed, put down the gun in his hand, and said in a relaxed and comfortable tone, I'm kidding, buddy. You can go now. By the way, please behave yourself recently, okay? Don't go to those rallies anymore. He was answered by a loud slam of the door. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89. No, Captain, you should have guessed this day would come. Steve. A tall and strong man sat next to Steve and handed him a can of beer. The two chatted on the bench in the park. Yes, but I didn't expect them to dare to do this. Steve took a sip of beer. Ha, don't be silly. What are they afraid of? This country is no longer the same country you fought for, Steve. She may have been beautiful and shining, but now she is just an ugly old woman with wrinkles and hyaluronic acid injections. Her hands are like the claws of the devil, greedy and bitter, and she wants to take everything she sees for herself, the man said sarcastically, and he drank half a bottle of beer in one gulp. Don't say that, Jack, unless you want to go in again. They are watching you all the time. As if I care. They can only do this, right? A bunch of cowards who hide behind and control everything, and think they are so great. Jack sneered. His face was cold and rough, like a stone under the frozen riverbed in winter, and he still had a military-style crew cut. Steve sighed. He suddenly found that the country he loved had become unfamiliar. He didn't want to talk about it anymore, so he changed the subject. Let's talk about something else. Are you still doing those things? What do you mean? Jack laughed. When he laughed, he didn't make people feel peaceful. On the contrary, he looked like a lion baring its teeth, dangerous and deadly. You know what I mean. What case has the great Jack Richard solved recently? Steve asked with a smile. Case? Jack seemed to have heard something ridiculous. He laughed and shook his head, patting the armrest of the bench hard. After a long time, he answered Steve, it can't be called a case. There is no client, but you can call it that. After all, it's about you. Steve raised his eyebrows. Mine? Jack turned his head. The cold wind blew across his face, The man took a sip of beer and looked at Steve. His eyes were distant and deep, as if he was not looking at Steve Rogers, but something else. His voice seemed to come from the horizon. Steve's heart suddenly beat very fast. He squinted his eyes and felt uneasy. "Yes, do you want to listen?" Steve turned his head, looked at the scenery in front of him, and took a sip of beer. "Sure, why not?" Jack Richard's smile disappeared, and he said expressionlessly, "Well, you'd better be prepared. Do you know how much money our government made in your name after you disappeared?" "Is that all you want to say?" "I know they are doing it, but the money was donated to a charity foundation." "Yes, charity foundation." "You really believe what they say?" "Steve, I don't know whether to say you are stupid or naive." Jack Richard shook his head. He knew that what he was going to say next might make a person collapse, but he never lied, not to mention that he was facing Steve Rogers. "Steve, the comics, clothes, toys that they released under your name over the years, or some other things. The money was indeed transferred to a foundation, but it was not a real foundation. It was an empty shell. It took me 3 months to confirm this. After that, I used my connections to find a retired general. 3 days after we talked at his home, he committed suicide. I found the forensic doctor, and his file was suicide by hanging. There were 5 bullet holes on the back of the old man's body. 9mm pistol. Suicide. Fucking suicide. So it took me another half a week to find the murderer. I was not surprised. They had disappeared from this world. All the identities used before were fake, and there was no clue for me to trace. 1 day later, I woke up in a motel with a plane ticket to France, a passport and a sum of money on the table. At that time, I knew that if I didn't want to die, I'd better not mention it to anyone. But you told me. Yes, Steve. I told you, because I don't care about their threats. Jack Richard laughed. He drank the rest of the beer in one gulp, and said lightly, "I guess while I'm talking to you now, someone has aimed more than 3 sniper rifles at my head. Look at the building opposite. Isn't its top floor very suitable for use as a sniper point?" Steve looked up and nodded. Jack raised a big middle finger to the roof of the building, and he laughed out loud. "This is their style. They don't even dare to face me in person. Do you think they are afraid?" Jack turned his head and looked at Steve, his eyes without a smile. "Some things must be revealed, Steve. I firmly believe in this, even if it costs me my life. That foundation, on the surface, is a charitable foundation, but all the money behind it has been transferred to another anonymous account. Even with the authority of the general, he can't find any relevant information, so you can imagine who is behind it." Steve clenched the beer can in his hand tightly. "As for the purpose, I don't know either. You need to check it yourself. Take care, Captain." After saying that, he left, without any extra words. His departure was as sudden as his appearance. Steve suddenly realized that it was the first time Jack Richard called him captain in the 5 years since they met, but he didn't expect that it would be the last time. He was left alone sitting on the park bench, the cold wind blowing through his hair, and for the first time in his life, Steve Rogers felt powerless. When he was still a thin man, he didn't feel powerless when facing those gangsters in the alley. He didn't feel powerless when facing those German demons in human skin. He didn't feel powerless when facing aliens. Why? Because he knew what he was fighting for. Now that everything has settled, he is sitting on a park bench in the most prosperous city in his country, feeling a deep emptiness. Is it all worth it? He asked himself, but he couldn't get any answer. Steve, who was drinking alone in a veteran's bar, looked up at the TV, which was reporting the news. A blonde woman in a red suit was talking. "Breaking news. Just now, the famous illegal detective Jack Richard died of unknown causes." The bartender with his back to him frowned and grinned disdainfully. "Fuck, unknown causes? You stupid cousin, just say it was a murdered. Am I right, Captain?" He turned around, and Steve had disappeared, with $20 on the table. "Captain?" a man in the corner shouted drunkenly. "Where is the captain here?" The bartender muttered, "Strange, he was here just now." The rest are still coding. Chapter 90, Fighting for Those Who Can't Fight. "Nice to meet you, Captain. Call me Steve." Hearing this, Sam Wilson looked at him in surprise, but he didn't say much, just nodded. "Okay, Steve. The two men ran together along the river. Their pace was very fast, but they could still keep their breathing smooth in between conversations. Sam Wilson said, "How have you been recently, Steve?" "Terrible." "How about you?" "Me?" Sam laughed. He stopped and lowered his head to tie his shoelaces. Steve stood beside him, and Sam's voice came dull. "No one is doing well, Steve. We are all disbanded, and the world no longer needs us, and since he left, they no longer hide it. It's ridiculous." He stood up, pulled up his thin training shirt and wiped the sweat from his forehead, smiling seemingly indifferently. "I guess we are just no longer needed, Steve. Many people have already anticipated what they are going to do to us, just like what that old bastard Mike did with tanks in Washington. We will also be crushed to death by another bastard with more advanced tanks." Seeing that Sam was in a bad mood, Steve changed the subject. "Let's not talk about that. Have you seen Rose recently?" "He's under house arrest." This unexpected answer made Steve's expression extremely serious. He asked briefly, "When did it happen?" "A year ago, Steve." "Does Tony know about this?" "How could he know?" DC said there was a shortage of resources, so he really built a plane and flew into the sky. It's probably still wandering in the universe now, trying to find a habitable planet and come back." "Arrogant bastard. He didn't even tell us." Steve frowned deeply and asked, "How many people can we contact?" Sam Wilson shook his head bitterly. "Not many, Steve. Strange is busy resisting the threat of magic. He hasn't shown up in almost 2 years. That crazy blonde woman is not with us. Clint and Natasha have disappeared, and Dr. Banner exiled himself. Scott was recruited. Thor went to play with those guys from space. As for T'Challa, he's a good man, but he's the king of Wakanda." He counted his fingers. "Now I, Frank, and you are the only ones who can be contacted. One more, Bucky." Sam's eyes widened. "Isn't he dead?" "The line of death is very vague, Sam." Steve showed a fleeting smile, and said to the veteran, "Can you still hold a gun now?" "Ha, since you're the captain, I won't bother with you about this." Sam smiled freely. He hammered Steve's chest and said, "I have no problem, Steve. But the question is, what are you fighting for this time? Don't be silent, and don't hide it. You and I know that this country has changed. If it goes on like this, she will sooner or later break into the neighbor's house with a knife and kill us all for a bottle of chocolate milk. It's very simple, just defending the country." Steve exhaled a breath of hot air, and the white mist dissipated in the air. In the low temperature, heat rose from his body. "Steve, I'm afraid this country is no longer worth fighting for." Steve looked back at Sam and said, "This country used to be beautiful, Sam. Her people are proud of her, but some people have made her ugly for their own selfish desires, and we have fallen with her. I just hope that we can help her before she falls to the ground." "And, Sam, think about it. Are you joining the army to protect those bastards in the White House, or to protect those who can't protect themselves?" After saying this, he patted Sam Wilson on the shoulder and left. Sam frowned and suddenly shouted, "Hey, how can I contact you?" Steve didn't answer. He just waved his hand with his back to Sam. Strange was sitting in his secret room. His face was abnormally pale, and something strange was stirring and crawling under his skin. He was floating in the air, and his red cloak fluttered around him without wind. He suddenly opened his eyes and fell down, letting out a quick cry of pain. His face became red again, and the bulging skin returned to its original state. A corner of the cloak flew up and swayed in front of him. Strange said weakly, "I'm fine, buddy." "I'm fine." He turned over from the ground with difficulty, lying on his back. He did not choose to stand up, but just lay on the ground without any image. Strange thought, this is too difficult. Being a wizard is good, but being the Sorcerer Supreme is not good at all. Not only does he have to face the threats from heaven and hell all the time, but he also has to cut off their tentacles trying to extend into the human world one by one. This matter alone is enough to exhaust him, but it is not over yet. Shenyan has been away for 7 years, and it is already 2032. Many alien races who think they are capable are ready to move, and Strange has to spare a hand to deal with them. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but cursed, "Damn stupid aliens, they are all damn idiots. If I had known this would happen, I might as well slaughter an alien race too. Goddamn bastard. Yeah, Strange. You should do that too. A familiar voice sounded, and Strange was stunned for a while. For a moment, he thought he was hallucinating, until Shenyan really walked in from the door of the secret room with that classic sarcastic smile. What, forgot who I am? Strange wiped his face, and he got up from the ground without changing his expression. Yeah, who are you? Are you sure you want me to say it? His smile became bigger and bigger, and Strange couldn't help laughing. He knew what Shenyan was going to say next, so he interrupted him. Forget it. Why did you suddenly come back? Do you think I want to come back? Shenyan rolled his eyes. I don't know how happy I was in another world, but it's a pity that a hateful bald woman came out of nowhere and insisted that I come back to save you, so I came back. Stop joking. Be serious. Strange thought he was joking until he saw the expression on Shenyan's face that didn't look like a lie. The smile on his face disappeared. Strange's face turned ugly, and he touched his beard. So, you mean she is not dead? I think so. Strange, I'm sorry to say this, but it seems that she has deceived all of us. Chapter 91 Conspiracy. Strange took a deep breath, skipped the topic, and said, so, what could have made her find you and bring you back? What kind of suffering and torture will our poor world suffer again? Shenyan spread his hands. How should I know? You don't know? Do you think I know? Strange thought about it and felt the same way. According to Shenyan's character, if he really knew who dared to invade the Earth, he would have wanted to find the hometown opposite and put a few suns on it and throw them down that day. He never waits overnight for revenge. It looks like you have to wait here for a while. Strange laughed maliciously. Shenyan frowned, and suddenly he had a bad feeling. Don't laugh so disgustingly. Don't tell me that I just came back and it's not even 2 minutes before something else comes to my door. Strange nodded, pointed to the ground, and then pointed to the top of his head. Do you want to guess? It's those bastards who are causing trouble for us? Shenyan narrowed his eyes, and he clicked his tongue. Okay, I'll go to hell to find that old bastard Mephisto, and you go to heaven to talk to Michael. I have no objection. But can we go in 2 days? Strange said with a wry smile. What's wrong? I'm too tired. Strange simply uttered 5 words, but Shenyan frowned deeply, and a white light flashed in his eyes. Strange quickly raised his hand. Oh, stop. You can't use magic to scan me without permission. It's very rude. The light? Shenyan was so angry that he laughed. He pursed his lips and sneered. If I don't watch, you bastard will never tell me what you did even if you die. How dare you put the dark worm into your body? Don't you know the consequences of doing so? Of course I know. Strange's tone sounded very guilty. Then why did you do it? The problem is, it's not that I want to, but only I can do it. Strange was silent for a while and said bitterly, if I don't do it, who will protect them? I haven't slept for 2 years. The longest meditation time is 15 minutes. If I don't use the dark worm, I really can't think of a way to keep me going. Shenyan was at a loss for words. For the first time, he had nothing to say about this. The dark worm is an extremely terrifying and extremely rare parasite that provides the host with unimaginable energy and lifespan. The price is the magic and power accumulated by the host in a long life, and even the soul will be devoured by them. It's not too late to stop now. Strange. Take them out. Shenyan didn't say anything more. He opened the portal to hell. Behind the door was an endless fire. He said this before stepping in. I'm looking for Mephisto. The wizard's words were extremely brief, but they sounded like an imperial decree to the ears of those demons. One of the taller ones knelt down directly, so that he was a head shorter than the wizard. But when this guy opened his mouth, flames came out of his mouth. Before he could say anything, Shenyan crushed his head with magic. This is the result of not brushing your teeth in the morning, friends, he said with a smile, and then nodded to another red goat hoof demon, signaling it to explain. Lord Mephisto. No, that bastard Mephisto hasn't shown up for a long time. It spoke very quickly and its articulation was very clear. Shenyan looked at it unexpectedly. The demon's ugly face showed a flattering smile. Shenyan also laughed. You used to deal with me often, right? You know the rules of my questioning so well. I can't find a reason to kill you. Its flattering smile turned to joy. but it froze in the next second. The wizard continued, "It's a pity that you are too ugly." With a crisp bang, Shenyan let go of the other trembling demons. He floated down from the Crimson Mountain and wandered aimlessly in hell. This hell is now empty, with no suffering human souls. This is his masterpiece from a few years ago. The demons in hell now have almost changed their careers and started to torture their own kind, although that is also one of the things they have always been more enthusiastic about. Shenyan looked at this hell. He breathed a breath of sulfur-smelling air, and didn't understand why Mephisto had been away for so long. Whenever the old bastard saw him coming, he would either leave a clone for him to kill to vent his anger, or run away in advance. No matter how Shenyan scolded him, he would not come out unless he was sure that Shenyan really left, and Shenyan would not really kill him. Hell is a part of the world, and Mephisto is one of the cornerstones of hell. Killing him would not benefit the world. One heaven and one hell are like two pillars holding the world together. Although this statement has no basis in science, it is true in magic. But this time, it is obviously not for this reason. If that bastard had the ability to know in advance that Shenyan would travel back through the world, he would not have been a coward. Shaking his head, he was too lazy to think about these things. Shenyan opened another portal to heaven and walked in. He felt something was wrong as soon as he came here. Heaven was originally a quiet and peaceful dimension, at least it seemed so, as long as you ignored the fact that they had been using human souls as fuel. Yes, it was them. Shenyan actually didn't understand why the angels in this world's heaven were all women. Maybe the creator had some bad taste. But now, this place is full of corpses and blood. He stood in front of the gate of heaven, looking directly at the road that was sacred in the mouths of believers. There were countless bodies of angels on both sides of the road. Their deaths might be different, but there was one thing in common: their wings were gone. The wings of angels were vital to them. They were the source of their power and the proof that they were angels. It could even be said that without wings, they were not angels. While he was still thinking, a huge pillar of fire broke out in the sky in front of him, which spread to the entire heaven in an instant. Shenyan immediately realized that something was wrong. If heaven collapsed here, the subsequent impact would inevitably cause disasters on the earth. At that time, it would not be angels who died, but mortals who had no resistance. Without hesitation, magic power immediately surged out and began to stabilize the existence of this dimension. At least he had to extinguish the pillar of fire with great power before he could leave. At this moment, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. It was too coincidental. His mental power exploration did not sense that there were other people here, only a dead silence. He had just arrived, and heaven began to be destroyed. This was undoubtedly a trap. They wanted to drag him here to repair the trap in heaven. It was simply an open conspiracy. The mastermind behind the scenes was telling him directly, if you want to make a move, heaven will collapse, and the world you are protecting will be in disaster, and it is caused by you. But if you don't make a move, what will happen next? Shenyan narrowed his eyes and continued to transfer magic power. Chapter 92 Scolding Myself. Captain, you seem to have contacted Sam Wilson in private. Steve was walking on the streets of New York. A black SUV drove up beside him. A man stuck his head out and said to him with a smile, "What, you even want to control who I meet? Besides, I remember you said not long ago that I'm not the captain?" Seth Beller glanced at the people passing by. He was still smiling, but his words were full of undisguised threats. "Why don't you get in the car and talk, Captain? There are so many people here. It's too dangerous. What do you think?" Steve Rogers looked at him, and for the first time, his eyes were filled with undisguised anger. "What do you want to do? Threaten me with the lives of civilians?" "Yes, Captain, I am threatening you with their lives, and you seem to have no way to deal with it." Seeing this, Seth Beller no longer concealed it. He sneered, took out a pistol from his arms, and pointed it at the old woman in front of him who knew nothing. "How about it? Do you want to get in the car, Captain?" He deliberately stretched the word captain very long, full of provocation. Steve pursed his lips, opened the back door and got in. There was no one in the back seat, only Seth Beller and another man in the car. Seth looked at Steve through the rear-view mirror and sighed. "Actually, Captain, I don't want to do this to you, but you are too ungrateful. We have let you go for a long time, but you really shouldn't have contacted Jack Richard. Look, now you have killed him. Whether I am or not is not up to you." Steve turned his head and looked at the scenery outside the window. After hearing this, Seth smiled and made a stop gesture. He said, "Oh, don't be so excited, Captain. How about this? I will take you to our office and let you talk to my boss in detail, okay?" Steve said indifferently, "I don't think it's necessary. You are already in this state, and your boss is probably not much better." After he said this, he suddenly jumped up and kicked Seth on the back of the head, then strangled the driver's neck and strangled him unconscious in an instant. Grabbing the steering wheel, he pressed the driver's thigh with one hand to keep the accelerator depressed, and slowly drove to an empty alley and stopped the car. Taking the unconscious Seth off the passenger seat, he searched him first, removing the standard pistol, micro camera, monitoring headset and other things from Seth. Steve looked at the camera, as if he wanted to see through its black surface who was controlling everything behind it. He threw the camera to the ground and crushed it with one foot. The sound of cars could be heard at the entrance of the alley, and Steve laughed at himself. He knew that he had been monitored, but he didn't expect them to do this. It was only 5 minutes after he robbed the car, and they responded immediately. "Captain America?" He silently recited these 4 words. And these 4 words that ran through his first half of life seemed like a joke at this moment. A similar black SUV stopped at the entrance of the alley, and a man in a suit got out of the car. His face was exactly the same as Seth Baylor. "Captain, we meet again. Can you please put me back in the car? It's troublesome to wash a suit, and this alley is so dirty," he said politely. "Clone, demon, or something else?" Steve stared at him and asked. "You can't guess, Captain. So why don't you just get in the car and go to the headquarters with me?" Seth Baylor remained polite. He denied Steve's guess, took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, took out a cigarette and lit it, but he only took a puff, and then began to stare at the cigarette butt that was flickering. "Look, Captain, in most cases, I'm a civilized person. I'm willing to solve problems in a civilized way, but if you don't want to, I think I can only use other methods to bring you to the headquarters." His voice reached Steve's ears, and Steve asked, "Why are you so persistent in getting me to go to your headquarters?" "Nothing, Captain. It's just that my boss wants to meet you and talk, that's all." Seth was still smiling, looking at the still silent Steve. He seemed to suddenly remember something, and suddenly said, "Oh, I almost forgot. If you are waiting for Frank Custer, please forget him. He should be busy with other things now." Steve heard this. He finally laughed. Seth frowned. "What are you laughing at?" "I never said I was waiting for Frank, you idiot." Another person's voice sounded in the alley, and an arrow instantly pierced Seth's head. "He is waiting for me, idiot." A man slowly walked out of the darkness of the alley. Who else could it be but Hawkeye Clint Barton? Clint bumped fists with Steve and said with a smile, "You look pretty good, Captain." "Please, don't call me Captain." "Steve will do." Steve waved his hand. Above them, a plane appeared out of thin air, silently, like a ghost. 10 minutes later, the body of Seth Baylor on the ground slowly stood up. He pulled out the arrow from his head, walked to himself who was thrown on the ground, and kicked himself in the stomach. That Seth also woke up slowly. He looked at Seth with a hole in his head and asked, "What happened?" "What else? You idiot. Speak politely." "Does he have to do it now?" That Seth said depressedly. "I am you. You are me. Watch your words." "Don't worry about it. Wake up your driver quickly. We must finish all this before he comes back. Otherwise all our efforts will be in vain." Shenyan is still trying his best to maintain the stability of heaven. He has kept this closed-eye posture for a long time, like a statue. Heaven was drawing huge amounts of magic power every second. Even if the pillar of fire had been extinguished by him, the damage it caused could be repaired, but very slowly. The wizard had a gloomy face, and he was not happy to fall into someone else's trap. Moreover, since he came here, he had been trying to get in touch with the Holy of Holies where Strange was, but there was no answer, and the same was true for the other 2 major temples and magic nodes. It was hard not to think the worst of things. He already had some guesses in his mind that the person behind the scenes might have some very extreme power in his hands, so extreme that he only needed to delay his Shenyan for a short while to completely destroy the earth, and he might not care about his own life, because if this happened, everyone knew what his Shenyan would do. Who would it be? The wizard muttered to himself. He was tired of this endless speculation and made a very bold decision. This plot will be very long and exciting. You can guess the development. If anyone guesses it, I will add 10 more chapters. By the way, I ask for votes. Chapter 93 False Mission. Seth Beller sat in his car, playing with a cigarette in his hand. His fingers were flexible and strong, yet gentle enough to rotate the cigarette between his fingers without wrinkling it. He chose not to start the car, but sat patiently in the driver's seat waiting for the bloody hole on his forehead to disappear. Some tentacle-like things were twisting in the hole on his forehead, which looked very disgusting. Seth adjusted the rearview mirror. He looked at the hole, and smacked his lips in dissatisfaction. Damn it, this thing is not as powerful as they say. He carefully observed the twisting of the tentacles, and was unaware of the passage of time. After a while, his mobile phone vibrated in his suit. Seth took out his mobile phone and took a look. There was no caller ID, but a strange garbled number. He answered the call, and his own voice came from it. They set off. Well, where are they? They've reached Trod's house. Wow, the captain is really fast. It seems that he is determined to play with us. Seth smiled again, his tone frivolous. Do you have any suggestions? Kill him and Hawkeye now. Don't be so irritable. Do you have any other suggestions? I am you, you are me. Don't you think so in your heart? That's not necessarily. What I mean is that although we are indeed the same person, there should be some differences if one's soul is divided into 100 parts. Don't you think? The other him said coldly. Fuck you, idiot. Where are there 100 now? We only have 40 left just to kill off those stinky bastards in heaven. Why are you so uncultured? I am you, you idiot. Seth hung up the phone speechlessly. He had just been scolded by himself for no reason. He then dialed another number. Hello, Mr. President. Are you used to living in the White House? Another voice came from the phone. Don't call me that. It sounds disgusting. Listen, I've been staring at that damn big red button on my desk for more than 10 minutes. If no one is sent to relieve me, I may not be able to resist the urge to press it in 3 hours. Then everyone will be killed by that bastard. Seth held the phone farther away, with a look of disgust on his face. Okay, please hold on a little longer. The person who will relieve me will be here soon. He hung up the phone, and another Seth Beller came in the co-pilot seat. Same hairstyle, same clothes, same face. Even the size of the smile is the same. This Seth Beller smiled and said, "You really make me feel disgusted." Same here. Do you know why? Because we are so similar. You are so smart. It's so shameless to praise yourself like that. Ha! Seth with a hole in his head said, "So, he is still up there?" "Yes, but according to our calculations, we can only delay him for about half an hour at most. This is based on the premise that he really repairs heaven honestly instead of doing something else. TSK, he has always been irritable, hasn't he? Stop making jokes and think of a solution quickly." Seth with a hole in his head shrugged indifferently in the face of his own urging. Be elegant in the face of pressure. Seth number 2. You see, there is a reason why I am number 1 and you are number 2. It's because you can't keep your cool, you know? The smile on Seth number 2's face disappeared, and he said expressionlessly, "Either you give us a solution now, or I will directly order the killing of Steve Rogers and Clint Barton. Then let that idiot in the White House press the button, and the whole world will be finished with us. Even if we die, we have to discuss that bastard. You really need to see a psychiatrist." Seth number 2. By the way, don't you really think something is wrong? What's wrong? Like why do we hate him so much? What kind of hatred can make us split ourselves into 100 parts and spend so much time infiltrating his world? Seth with a hole in his head turned around and said this to Seth number 2, and Seth number 2's expression struggled for a moment, then returned to calm. Because he destroyed our planet. Yes, Seth number 2, but the problem is, Seth with a hole in his head took out a pistol from his arms, pointed it at Seth number 2's head and fired a shot. We are not damn Skrulls. Blood splattered, and the co-pilot and front windshield were covered with blood. Seth imitated a cowboy, blew on the muzzle of the gun, and even turned the safety off and turned the gun. With a happy smile on his face, he started the car and drove onto the road. After they drove on the road for 10 minutes, Seth number 2 woke up slowly. He touched the hole on his head, felt the stirring of the tentacles, and suddenly a weird smile appeared on his face. You are right, Seth number 1, we are not damn Skrulls. Look, Seth number 2, people with holes in their heads speak differently. Seth number 1 smiled frivolously. He pointed to the hole on his head that was about to heal, and the smile on his face became more and more crazy. The two laughed crazily in the car. They sped on the road, increasing the speed to the highest. The engine roared wildly, and this technological monster roared, leaving the dust together. They created one car accident after another behind them, and this was exactly what they wanted. Chaos is so wonderful. Seth number 1 smiled and said, how do you feel? Seth number 2, how does it feel to break free from that fake mission? It feels great. Ah, I knew you would say that. Of course, after all, you are me. Then what? Seth number 1, what are we going to do? We're not going to do anything. Seth number 2. Seth number 1 grabbed the steering wheel, and his madness was completely restrained, as if it wasn't him who just drove over the innocent pedestrian. We just need to watch it happen. Seth number 2. You're damn right, Seth number 1. Shenyan was doing something very crazy. He withdrew his magic power, and watched the heaven fall apart expressionlessly, gradually burning up in those unextinguishable flames, as if he really didn't care about the impact on the human world. That's weird. His idea was very simple. Since heaven is difficult to repair, then don't repair it. When it's gone, just use my magic to rebuild a pillar here. He watched coldly as those magnificent white buildings collapsed and were burned by the flames, and the beautiful bodies of the angels were burned to charred corpses and finally turned into ashes. A satisfied smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. I have wanted to do this for a long time. Chapter 94. Missing the past is because the present is not good. How do you feel, Steve? Hawkeye said with his arms around his chest, smiling as he looked at a row of photos on the table in the rear cabin of the Quinjet. Beside him, Steve Rogers, who had changed his clothes, picked up a helmet and put it on. He was wearing a full black streamlined armor. The helmet made a buzzing sound after he put it on, and closed the mask with a unique mechanical click. A big red cross appeared on his smooth mask, emitting an attractive red light. Except that the clothes don't fit well. Everything is fine. Steve's voice sounded very mechanical after being processed by the helmet. Hey, don't complain. This is already the best I can find. After so long of disbanding, there are not many left that can be used. The one you are wearing is already in the best condition. Just bear with it. Steve knocked on the right side of the helmet, and the mask folded up by itself after it opened. He said, Clint, although I know nothing about high technology, I am surprised that Tony didn't add a self-adjusting function to the clothes. You know, the worst tailors back then knew how to make clothes bigger or smaller. Hawkeye couldn't help laughing. If he heard what you said here, he would probably start making a set of self-adjusting clothes on the spot to show you. Yeah, he definitely would, and he would say I'm an old-fashioned guy who doesn't know anything about high technology. Steve smiled and nodded, then sighed. The Quinjet modified by Tony had almost no engine sound, so his sigh was particularly obvious in the cabin. What's wrong? Hawkeye asked. Nothing, Clint, I just miss the past. Hawkeye looked at the photos. He opened his mouth, wanted to say something, but in the end he just couldn't help but nodded with a bitter smile. Who doesn't miss the past, Steve? There's not a day in these years that I don't think of the past. Sometimes I even feel like I'm still on a mission when I wake up. But you have to accept reality, Steve. The Avengers have disbanded and can't come back. What else can we do? You're right, Clint. The Avengers are indeed disbanded. Even Captain America should be dead in their minds. But I'm not dead yet. I'm still a few teeth in this old dog. So, I'm going to do something I should have done a long time ago, Steve said softly. He continued, change the target to Rod's home. The destination has been changed. Captain, welcome back. The slightly dull voice of the mechanical female voice came from the top of the cabin. Change the name. Call me Steve from now on. Although I don't know if there will be a future, Steve thought. The name has been changed. Steve, go to Rod's home? Hawkeye asked, puzzled. He was under house arrest for a year, Steve explained briefly. Hawkeye shook his head in silence. He said, that stubborn bastard wouldn't listen to our advice. We had told him a long time ago that there would be no good outcome if he went back, but he insisted on returning to the army after we disbanded. He deserves his current fate. Don't blame him, Clint. Let's talk about you. How have you been these years? Steve patted Hawkeye's shoulder. Me? Hawkeye shrugged. I'm doing very well. Really, Captain? It couldn't be better. He obviously didn't want to talk about it anymore. Steve changed the subject and asked, where's Frank? He's fine, same as always, killing this and that. Over the years, he has fought his way from New York to Japan, and back to New York from Japan. The last time I met him, the bastard's right eye was blind, and he boasted to me that he had killed 70 people with his bare hands. He has that ability. Who doesn't? I just can't stand his show-off look. Fighting with him again? Hawkeye waved his hand, and he said calmly, I won't bully a blind man. They chatted as if time had returned to the past. The world was very chaotic at that time, with aliens, demons, crazy machines, and a lot of Hydra threats, but at least they were united, not like now, falling apart. The mechanical female voice of I sounded in the cabin. We have arrived at Colonel Rhodes's home. Do you need my fire support? No, no. After Steve finished speaking, his mask slowly unfolded with a click, and the buzzing sound sounded again. Hawkeye closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened his eyes again, all the unnecessary emotions were wiped away. He stood up silently, picked up the bow, and then took the quiver and hung it behind him. The cabin opened and the wind poured in. The two looked at each other and jumped. Rod was running on the treadmill facing a French window. He had been running at the highest pace for 3 hours. He had to use this almost self-abuse training to make himself forget something. Physical fatigue can make people forget the pain of the soul for a short time. You are a soldier, Rod. Raise your face. Once again, he heard his father's voice. The stubborn old man with wounds all over his body was lying on the hospital bed with a stern face. He said the last words to his only son in his loud voice. It was not a warm farewell, but a reprimand. Since then, this sentence has been ringing in his mind all the time. Inseparable. But this sentence did not bring him any benefits. Rod could hear the undisguised laughter coming from his living room, where 5 bastards were watching pay TV on his TV, drinking his wine, and making a mess of his carpet. And he couldn't even say, please get out of my house, because those were the people who were sent to protect him. A year ago, he was under house arrest. Even after retiring from the army and turning in his armor, he was not allowed to contact the outside world, not allowed to go out, and not even allowed to have his own mobile phone. Rod had thought about resisting, but every time he had such thoughts, his father's words would ring in his ears. Rod suddenly growled, and he hammered hard on the panel of the treadmill. The machine stopped, and he stood on it tiredly, holding on to the handrail, sweat rolling down his skin. A pain of betrayal was churning in his heart, tearing at his soul. Part of him was roaring, I am an Avenger, I am a hero, they can't treat me like this. Another part of him was also roaring, and the part of him said in his father's voice, I am a soldier. Soldiers are bound by orders. He raised his head and looked up at the night sky outside. He picked up the water cup beside him and took a big gulp. At this moment, a loud noise was heard. 5 updates tomorrow. In addition, I originally said that the updates would be on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Friday, but I got it wrong while writing. Chapter 95. The rain keeps falling. A man was thrown through the wall, his head hitting Rod's barbell. The bloody scene made him frown. It was one of the 5 bastards who were responsible for monitoring him. Rod bent down and touched over to take the gun from his waist. He walked quietly to the hole in the wall and carefully peeked out. The living room was dark and Rod didn't hear any sound. With the moonlight outside, he saw that his living room was in a mess. The coffee table was broken and the sofa was turned to one side, covered with blood. His large-screen TV was also smashed. This tragic scene made his eyelids twitch, Before he started the next move, a fascinating red light lit up in the living room. Rod's pupils shrank. He raised his pistol without hesitation and pulled the trigger repeatedly in the direction of the red light. But none of the bullets hit the red light. He continued to move forward, like a ghost in the darkness. In the blink of an eye, he broke through the wall and made the hole much bigger. Rhodes immediately stepped back. He grabbed the dumbbells placed aside and used inertia and its own weight to swing at the attacker's head, but was intercepted by a strong hand in midair. A mechanical voice sounded. "Your skills have not declined, Rhodes. Who are you? Why do you have the special equipment of the Avengers?" Rhodes frowned. In the gap between his words, he suddenly pulled back the dumbbells with force, trying to move the attacker's center of gravity, but the man did not move at all. Instead, Rhodes, who had tried his best, fell to the ground due to the reaction force. "Hello, Rhodes." A familiar voice sounded behind him. Rhodes looked back and saw Hawkeye holding a longbow, hanging upside down outside the French window of his gym, looking at him. "Clint, why are you here? And you? Who are you?" Rhodes looked at him in doubt, and then looked back at the attacker who was covered in black. The attacker patted the right side of his helmet, and the mask opened, revealing a face that he was so familiar with that he couldn't be more familiar. Rod's originally tense body relaxed, and he exhaled. "Captain, you really gave me a surprise. You'd better call him Steve, Rod." Hawkeye's annoying voice came from outside the window. He was still hanging upside down outside the window, swaying his body leisurely, like an acrobat. "What's wrong? What happened?" Rod smelled something wrong from Hawkeye's words. Steve took off his helmet and wiped his hair. He replied briefly, "Nothing, Rod. It's just that Jack Richard is dead. And now, we are going to settle accounts with the person who ordered his killing. Do you want to come?" Rod looked at Hawkeye, then at Steve, and he suddenly grinned. His white teeth were very conspicuous. "It just so happens that I also have a score to settle with some other people." On a rainy night, the sound of gunfire continued. A gangster squatted behind a crate, holding a cross in his hand and praying devoutly. "Almighty, only Lord, may you bless me and protect me from the devil." He didn't finish his prayer. The man looked at his left hand with despair and threw away the cross. He cried and clenched the high-powered revolver in his hand, and poked his head out from behind the crate. But he just poked his head out and was blown up by a flying bullet before he could shoot. His skull was opened, and the bullet rushed through his brain with kinetic energy, splashing blood and brain matter all over the ground, and was quickly washed away by the heavy rain. Frank Custer liked rain very much, because rain could wash away blood. He strolled leisurely in this dock with the standard assault rifle in his hand. The killing had lasted for most of the night. These bastards who came out of nowhere to take his life blocked his way to support the captain. Frank was no stranger to people trying to kill him. He was even very familiar with it. In fact, most people he had met over the years wanted to do the same, but the latter number. Fortunately, sending them to hell and going to the captain were not contradictory. In fact, the two things were somewhat related. Therefore, Frank was very happy to kill them first. The gun in his hand roared, flames gushed out, and bullets flew out. The flickering firelight illuminated the smirk on his face that never faded, and also illuminated the blood-stained skull on his chest. His long windbreaker was wet by the rain, dragging on the ground, mixed with the blood. He was like a death god who harvested lives, killing people in this dock. But as the killing went on, he gradually noticed something strange. Something was wrong. Gangsters were not usually so fearless. They were all cowards who only dared to threaten the poor and women and children. Even the most fierce of them would retreat when they saw the skull on Frank's chest. But these people are different. They are indeed gangsters. But since the gunshots, more than 40 people have died, and Frank is not even injured. Faced with such a desperate scene, they should have started to run away long ago. Instead of doing what they are doing now, instead of running, they shot back at him. Even though their accuracy was ridiculously poor, their expressions were full of despair. It was as if something was forcing them. But he didn't care. Frank's smile became more ferocious. He raised his leg and stepped over the upper body of a scum who was shattered by 3 short bursts. The power of the bullets was much greater than people imagined. Frank turned around and fired 3 more short bursts, one in the abdomen, one in the heart, and one in the head. The gun in his hands seemed to be two different things from the hands of these people. One can bring death, and the other can only make a noise. The rain was still falling, and it was even getting heavier. The rain was pouring down, hitting the ground. The blood was washed away, and the dead people, without exception, all lay on their backs facing the sky. Some of the lucky corpses still had eyes and looked at the night sky with their lifeless eyes. Two red lights gradually lit up in their lifeless pupils. Their blood should have been washed away by the rainstorm, but at this time it was carried by the rain and silently formed an inverted pentagram around the dock. This evil magic circle drawn with the blood and flesh of sinners slowly lit up. Frank turned back suddenly and saw that the sky was covered by red light. The dead bodies stood up again, let out a dull roar, broke through the rain curtain, and rushed towards him. Frank didn't care and continued to shoot. The red light piercing the sky and the flames from the muzzle shone on his face, which seemed to be a perfect match with that smile. He laughed wildly and roared, "Come on, what's the harm in killing you again?" But after the corpses were resurrected by the power of darkness, they no longer belonged to human beings. Even if they still looked like humans on the outside, they were completely different inside. His bullets did not have the same effect as before. At most, they knocked the zombies to the ground, but they would get up again soon. Seeing that the bullets had no effect, Frank simply took out 3 grenades from his waist. Amid the deafening explosion, a hand was blown in front of him. Frank looked at the hand expressionlessly, and it was still slowly crawling towards him. Frank pulled out the dagger from his waist, thrust it hard, and fixed the hand in place. He did not choose to escape, but human power is limited. The corpses gradually surrounded him. The rain continued. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96. The rain is still falling. Frank suddenly woke up. He sat up, and looked around vigilantly. He found himself in a dark alley, empty, and rain was falling from the sky. The cold raindrops fell on his face, bringing a slight chill. The man stood up, and a lightning bolt struck from the sky, illuminating the alley and the bloody skull on his chest. A stinging feeling made his expression become hideous. Frank turned his head and saw a woman standing at the entrance of the alley staring at him. Behind her was a thick, indissoluble darkness. Her golden hair shone, emitting a halo in the rain. Her skin was as white as ivory, and her blue eyes reflected the bloody figure of the man standing opposite her. But the man pulled out a pistol and pointed it at her. His arm seemed to be made of steel, without the slightest tremor, and the muzzle of the gun was pointed at the woman's beautiful face, as if he would shoot immediately if she moved a little. "Does it hurt?" the woman asked softly. His hands began to tremble. Raindrops streaked across Frank Custer's face. He was very familiar with this woman's face, but he still held the gun. From the thick darkness behind the woman, 2 children, a boy and a girl, slowly walked out. They were wearing blood-stained clothes, with dull expressions and bullet holes all over their bodies. The boy's dark eyes stared at Frank's face and he asked, "Dad, why did you point a gun at Mom?" The girl did the same. "Dad, have you forgotten us?" Frank looked straight ahead, and his eyes didn't seem to be focused on the 3 people he was so familiar with, but passed through them. He stared at the darkness behind them. His teeth were clattering, and drops of water flowed from the corners of his eyes, dripping down to his chin and falling to the ground. I don't know if it was tears or rain. 3 gunshots rang out, and a flash of lightning struck again. Frank stood there in a daze, and the gun had disappeared. The incomplete bodies of his wife and children fell at his feet, stretching out their bloody hands to grab his trouser legs, and screaming resentfully from his throat. "Why did you do this? You killed me, Dad. You killed us. I hate you." The words of his dead relatives made his face pale, and darkness came around him, completely shrouding him. He heard it, and heard it very clearly. In the darkness, something was whispering in his ear, "Come, sleep, there will be no more pain. There will be no more harm, and you don't have to endure the pain." You just need to sleep quietly." The scene described by the voice was so moving that he seemed to see himself with his wife and children, living together without worries. Isn't that the picture he has always longed for? Is it really like this? He asked himself. A trace of a grim smile flashed across his expressionless face, and countless blood-red pictures began to flash back in front of his eyes, and blood engulfed him. Those who had been killed by him turned into ghosts, screaming, roaring, and cursing him in the hell full of flames. But the Punisher was unmoved, with a satisfied smile on his cold face, watching them scream and suffer. This is exactly what he wanted. He threw the reassuring darkness behind him and jumped into hell. The hatred and anger in his heart turned into flames and began to burn on his body, but he didn't care about it. He just laughed wildly and swung the long knife that appeared in his hand at some point, killing the resentful souls that rushed towards him again and again. In this cruel killing, his flesh and blood gradually turned into nothingness in the painful burning. Frank Custer disappeared, and a burning skeleton stood in his place, with a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood under his feet. In the real world, Frank, who was drowned in corpses and placed in the center of the magic circle, suddenly opened his eyes. The flames burned on his body, and in an instant he turned into a burning skeleton. The creature stood there, surrounded by an incredibly thick sin. It laughed crazily and howled like a beast. Sin. Rhodes fiddled with the pulse rifle in his hand. This thing was made by Tony in his spare time, but it was still incredibly powerful compared to live ammunition weapons. After he closed the weapons manufacturing department of Stark Enterprises, he never sold any weapons to the outside world, even if the government came to beg to buy his little toys. This thing is only for the internal members of the Avengers. His armor was taken away by them, and if nothing unexpected happens, his military title will be stripped. Soon, his face will be seen on TV, and most likely it will be accompanied by the words "wanted criminal." But he doesn't care at all. Rod looked at the pulse rifle in his hand and sat in the rear cabin of the Quinjet. For the first time in his life, his father's voice disappeared from his mind. This made him feel relieved and even wanted to smile. Steve sat in the cockpit. He didn't know how to fly the Quinjet. Clint sat in the main driver's seat and manually adjusted the route. They planned to go and see what delayed Frank for so long, and then go to the shelter to meet Natasha Romanoff with his family. The Quinjet flew over New York and they arrived at the New York harbor. The whole process did not make any sound. Like a ghost, the voice of the eye rang out in the cabin. Warning: an extremely high-level witchcraft energy explosion has been detected on the ground, with an energy level of 4. Do you need to notify Kamartaj? Clint and Steve looked at each other. Before Steve could speak, a dazzling flame burst out from the ground and rushed into the sky. The intelligent eye immediately relayed the situation on the ground to the cabin. They quickly returned to the rear cabin from the cockpit. Rhodes looked at them seriously and pointed at the holographic projection screen. The scene on it was shocking. There was a burning skeleton waving the chain in its hand, destroying a building with each swing. It opened its mouth wide, its jaw opened and closed, and collided, laughing wildly in silence. But in just half a minute, it had destroyed 3 nearby residential buildings, causing countless casualties. What the hell is that? Demon? Undead? Damn, I really miss and Strange. This kind of thing should be their job. Rhodes frowned, and he pressed the button on the top of the pulse rifle in his hand. The rifle unfolded after a buzzing sound, and light blue light emanated from the gaps on its body, illuminating Rhodes' face light blue. Steve put on the helmet, and he asked the eye to open the rear hatch, then turned around and said to the two of them, "Whatever that thing is, I think we'd better go down and stop it." Chapter 97. This is just the beginning. Shenyan clenched his fists tightly, and the magic power condensed into a huge black magic ball according to his mind. Heaven had completely collapsed and was burned clean by the flames. As one of the pillars of the human world in the concept of magic, there was no plan for this situation in any ancient magic book. Who could have thought that one day heaven would be destroyed? So he simply did it according to his own wishes. "Don't you want a pillar? I'll give you one." He put 2/3 of his magic power here to replace the place where heaven used to be. A small dimension began to take shape gradually. Shenyan didn't know how long it would take for life to be born here, but he was actually too lazy to think about it now. The mage felt nauseous, which was the sequelae of using a lot of magic power. He quickly put this feeling behind him. He had experienced it too many times and was used to it. He used the little magic power left to open a portal, and he passed through it and returned to the human world. As night fell, he looked at the city under his feet, closed his eyes and searched the entire earth with his mental power. Invisible mental tentacles wrapped the blue planet layer by layer, from mountains to oceans, from forests to deserts. He even searched underground ruins, and found every suspicious point and kept it in mind. He had a thought, and was going to go directly to the Sanctum Sanctorum where Strange was, but the chaotic and disordered power that suddenly appeared in New York made his face look extremely ugly. He was very familiar with this kind of power. Demons. Demon invasion? They also got involved in this matter? The wizard frowned and turned to open a portal to New York. He had just come over when he saw the flames rising into the sky. A skeleton with a burning body was laughing wildly and grabbed a man. He looked like an ordinary cleaner, but the skeleton still grabbed him, holding the man's head with its terrifying claws, forcing him to look at himself, and saying blasphemous words. "Look at my eyes." Shenyan waved his hand, and the mirror space was directly expanded. The broken city was hanging upside down in the sky like fragments. The skeleton seemed to have not understood what was happening, and was bound to the spot by the magic tentacles that followed closely. Before he could make any move, the tentacles turned into black chains in the next second and bound it tightly, making it unable to move. Although the hellfire on its body was still trying to burn this magical creation, it was in vain. Shenyan had killed demons much stronger than him before, but the one in front of him could only be used as a furnace. The wizard frowned and scanned the skeletal body of the demon. In addition to the hellfire in its body, there were two entangled and mixed souls. One of them was actually an acquaintance of his, the Punisher, Frank Custer. The wizard waved his hand, and his soul and the soul of the demon were pulled out. The flames on the skeleton went out, and it turned back into a human form. Frank woke up slowly. He first looked at his body lying on the ground, and then turned his head to look at the wizard. "You're back." Frank showed a fleeting smile on his face. He didn't seem to be shocked, but just nodded to the wizard. But his attempt to show a friendly smile was particularly creepy because of the way his soul was entangled with the red demon. In the soul state, his face would appear normal for a while, and then turn into a grinning skeleton. Children would definitely have nightmares if they saw it. Shenyan sighed. "Now is not the time to reminisce, Frank. I'll make it short. This demon invaded your body and entangled with your soul for a short time. You seem to have turned into some strange demons. But I don't have time to help you study your body's problems now, because there's a damn bastard wandering around in our world, and the worst thing is, I don't know who he is, or even what he wants to do." Frank looked at the upside-down city in the sky, frowned and asked, "What's the situation outside?" "I just seemed to have turned into a burning skeleton. It's simple. This demon used your body to kill many people in the city. When I came, you had already demolished 3 buildings. They were all apartments." Frank's face turned ugly. Shenyan continued, "I will help you stabilize it temporarily, and I will come back to help you get rid of it completely after I deal with that bastard. Get ready, Frank." After he finished speaking, he did not give Frank time to indicate that he was ready, and directly stuffed him back into his body and released the mirror space. The crowds around him were still running away, and screams continued. In the sky, a familiar Quinjet suddenly lifted its invisibility and revealed its shape. 3 black dots jumped down from above, and when they were about to approach the ground, they scattered and landed lightly on the ground. Shenyan laughed, but now was really not the time to reminisce. He left Frank, opened a portal and left. Steve's processed mechanical voice came from under the helmet. "Did you see it?" "Yes," Hawkeye said uncertainly, "but I think I saw it wrong." "It's incredible that the best archer in the world said this." Rhodes shook his head, still holding the pulse rifle in his hand, scanning around, and remained alert. "You are not wrong, Clint." A hoarse voice came from behind them, and Rhodes immediately turned around and aimed his gun. Steve lowered his gun and opened his mask. "Frank, what happened just now?" Frank limped to them and refused Hawkeye's support. He coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood, saying, "Okay, Let's make a long story short. 1 good news and 2 bad news. Good news. He is back. He took a breath and spoke a little intermittently. Bad news 1. I was just invaded by a demon. Damn, it hurts. So the thing you just saw should be me. Sorry, guys. Bad news 2. He said that there is a damn lunatic wandering around in our world now. Damn. It really hurts. He fainted after a low roar. Hawkeye supported him and he and Rhodes lifted him up on each side. Steve looked at the people running around, standing in the burning ruins, with an ugly face. He raised his right hand and called the Quinjet to find an open place to pick them up. Don't worry, Steve. How bad can it be? He is back. Hawkeye seemed to have a special confidence in his Shenyan. Rhodes said mercilessly, don't be so optimistic, Clint. When have you ever seen he so impatient? Even that purple-skinned bastard with a disgusting chin came to Earth. He was not like this. He left without even saying hello. I have a hunch, gentlemen. This may just be the beginning, Steve said worriedly. Chapter 98 is definitely not the mastermind. Shenyan is really anxious now. Heaven is destroyed, and the problem of the pillars has been solved by him. Frank, who inexplicably turned into a flaming skeleton, was also solved by him. But sometimes, a solved problem will give rise to more problems. Like a Naboo. I didn't say anything. First, where are the wings of the angels? The bodies of the angels were thrown on the ground like garbage, but their wings were all taken away. The energy in so many angel wings combined can blow up the earth 3 times. He can't help but be anxious. Second, the old bastard Mephisto ran away, and now Frank has caused this kind of trouble again. Shenyan knows that the guy never gets up early without profit, and it is difficult for him not to think badly of this matter. On the surface, the matter has been solved, but who knows if the follow-up will be worse. With a gloomy face, he first came to the sanctuary of the Holy of Holies in New York, where Strange should expel the dark worm in his body. This process will take a long time, but the moment he walked into the sanctuary of the Holy of Holies, the scene he saw made his face gloomy again. Strange's collection of books was thrown on the ground at random, and the treasures in the display cases disappeared. There were some things of the same level as his cloak. Shenyan looked up and saw a line of words written in blood on the ceiling above the sanctuary. Will the Skrull Butcher shed tears when he sees his friend die? The cloak was nailed to the side of the words by a slender dagger. The magic glow that once shone on it all the time had disappeared, and it hung there like a piece of rag, losing all sound. The wizard waved his hand, and the cloak flew down, still lifeless. Even if he poured magic into it, it was still the same. It's not that it can't be repaired at all, but he doesn't have the leisure and time now. Shenyan stared at the line of words, feeling the undisguised magic aura left on it. A smile suddenly appeared on his gloomy face. You're dead. Seth Beller was speeding on the interstate highway, keeping the highest speed the whole time. He didn't stop even when he saw people or cars. Strangely, this SUV was unscathed even if it hit a truck. During this crazy journey that lasted a whole day, no police appeared behind him, chasing him, and shouting at him to stop with a loudspeaker. When he was still in the city, many people took photos and posted them on social media, but they soon found that they couldn't post the photos no matter what. Some people who didn't believe in it tried repeatedly, and their accounts were immediately blocked. There were even people in black suits who came to the door. Who knows what will happen next? Besides, no one cares. At least Seth doesn't care. Seth was now shouting with joy, listening to old rock songs on the 80s and 90s radio station, singing along with a series of classic bands such as Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses, and even Skid Row, while shouting to Seth number 2, who was in the co-pilot seat and had been dead for a long time, I love Earthling music, especially rock, and this radio station, 80s and 90s, it's catchy and easy to remember. What do you think, Seth number 2? Seth number 2 couldn't answer him because his entire head had disappeared and was eaten by Seth for dinner, but that didn't matter. Seth imitated Seth number 2's voice, which was his own voice, and replied, me too, you idiot. We are the same person. After he finished this lame joke, he laughed out loud, ignoring the horn of the junked car opposite him, and the SUV crashed into it. His car was intact, while the junked car was broken into pieces bit by bit, parts flying everywhere. and the two people sitting in it were smashed into pieces. Seth looked at the blood and broken pieces on the glass. He reached out and carefully took a piece with 2 fingers. After looking at it for a long time, he still couldn't recognize what kind of tissue it was, so he just threw it into his mouth. His eyes lit up and he said with a smile, "It's liver, it's fucking disgusting." He laughed and shouted, and stuck his head out of the window again, shouting wildly at the window. His voice spread far on this desolate road. Maybe only cacti and tumbleweeds could hear his laughter. But now, there is one more person. Seth Biller slammed on the brakes, and his head hit the front windshield due to the recoil. He screamed in pain, covered his head, and complained to the black-robed man hovering in front of his car, "Hey, man, don't you know what driving regulations are? You can't just rush into the middle of the road." A smile appeared on the man's face. He raised his right hand and pressed it down. The once indestructible SUV turned into a pile of scrap metal in an instant. Seth Biller was also crushed into a pool of meat paste, but even at this point, he was still talking. "It hurts, it really hurts. Don't you have a heart?" The wizard's magic power exploded instantly, directly blasting the meat paste into powder. He grabbed his soul, carefully observed the small fragment, and said with a smile, "You are really crazy, bastard. Divide yourself into 100 parts?" The fragment said, "Yes, buddy, but it's not my idea." "Really? If you don't believe me, just look at my brain and you will know." "I'm not lying to you." "Oh, I seem to have no brains." His soul fragment laughed crazily, and it was like a vibrating glass fragment in his Shenyan's hand. The wizard also laughed. He said, "I just finished reading it. I have to say that you are a hateful and pitiful bastard." "You finished reading it? You are really fast, man. Then please do me a favor and quickly kill my clones." "Wait, it seems that we can't call them that." Forget it. It doesn't matter. Kill them quickly and save your world." "Seriously, buddy, I don't want to do this either." "You can only blame that big blue head. When you beat him up, remember to be ruthless. It will also be considered revenge for me." Okay, he Shenyan replied with a smile, and then crushed his soul with one hand. This is not over yet. At this moment, all the other Seth Biller in the world died. Those in the White House, SHIELD, and the Special Human Security Directorate. They may be in high positions or unknown, but they all died at this moment, and the fragments of their souls flew towards his Shenyan. A broken gem gathered in his palm. "Seth Biller, is this your real name?" His Shenyan looked at the gem and muttered to himself. Then it was completely destroyed. The last chapter is still being written and will be coming soon. Chapter 99. Seth Biller. Seth Biller, who is he? His Shenyan didn't know. Even Seth Biller himself didn't know. His memory had completely collapsed in the long-term brainwashing, and a false revenge mission became his reason for living. All his Shenyan could see were fragmented memories. What is certain is that he is not from Earth. He had wandered among the stars for hundreds of years, without a home or friends. He had only power, and he had met his Shenyan once, when he was chasing the Skrulls throughout the universe. Well, I was a little too ostentatious at that time. Later, when he passed by a holiday planet, he met a blue-skinned female Kree. The other party had amazing beauty, and soon became familiar with this lonely wanderer. In her deliberate approach, Seth Biller fell, but this was not the beginning of love, but the beginning of a nightmare. Seth was taken back to the Kree Empire by the female Kree, saying that he wanted to see the Supreme Wisdom to get blessings for this wedding. This is their custom since ancient times, because the Supreme Wisdom is a life computer that embodies the highest wisdom of the Kree people, containing the crystallization of all science, philosophy, military, thoughts, etc. It can even be said that this thing is the Kree people themselves. As it should be. They also listen to the command of this supercomputer. This thing rules the Kree Empire. Getting its approval is extremely important for this marriage. Seth Biller didn't really want to go, but he also knew in his long life that love requires sacrifice. However, when he traveled a long distance to the Kree Empire and met the Supreme Wisdom with his fiancée, he did not get a blessing, but a blade from his fiancée's hand and the mental control that followed. He was brainwashed and suffered so much that even his soul was cut and poured into 100 clone bodies. This is not over yet. He was implanted with false memories and missions. The false memories implanted in his brain by the Supreme Wisdom made him think that he was the last Skrull, and his goal was revenge. The Supreme Wisdom set an almost perfect plan. First, he came to Earth and infiltrated and controlled the whole world. The brainwashing of the Supreme Wisdom was very successful, so successful that 100 Seth Beller thought they were really the last Skrulls. They lurked with anger, controlled the entire United States, separated all of Shenyan's former close companions, and waited for the right time to kill them all. They wanted to make Shenyan feel pain first and then torture him slowly. They had different plans for the 4 strongest points in the Avengers after Shenyan left. Carol Danvers could be ignored. She almost didn't think of herself as an Earthling. Tony Stark, using his character weaknesses to make him fly into space to find a habitable planet. Of course, Seth Beller thought so. There is a sequel to the plan of the Supreme Wisdom. Shenyan guessed that he must be caught and brainwashed. Bruce Banner, Hulk, used the power of witchcraft to confuse his mind, attack public opinion after he ran away and slaughtered the residents in the city, and let him exile himself after he wakes up. Thor and Thor Odinson are even simpler, as they have been wandering in space. They may not even go. Finally, it is Strange. Communicate with aliens and heaven and hell to make Strange exhausted, so that he will be forced to use the dark worm. Shenyan will definitely ask him to expel it after he comes back. While Shenyan is stabilizing heaven, find Strange. Finally, kill the donkey. Kill him in heaven. Use the wings of angels as the final means to die with Shenyan. Kill all the former members of the Avengers at the same time, and then launch a nuclear bomb to clean up the place. But there is a difficulty in the plan drawn up by the Supreme Wisdom. That is Strange. He has not come out of the sanctuary of the Holy of Holies. Seth Beller really thinks of himself as a Skrull, and thinks that the plans of the Supreme Wisdom are all his own ideas. Therefore, in order to have a way to get close to Strange, a Seth Beller came into contact with dark witchcraft. He has no magic power, so he adopted an extremely crazy method. Anyway, in his cognition, he is already a homeless person. What did he do? Sacrifice. After sacrificing more than 5,000 people, he obtained the dark magic from Sitown. Because of this powerful but violent power, he was temporarily out of the control of the Supreme Wisdom. He found that his memory and life were actually false, and his real name had long been forgotten. This fact once made him crazy, but fortunately, he was almost crazy. It was already the bottom. How crazy could he go? For a period of time, this Seth Beller was addicted to alcohol and various things that could bring him stimulation, until these things also contributed to the destruction of his brain. Seth Beller woke up one morning, he looked at the needle hole on his arm thoughtfully, and suddenly felt that his life had actually ended. So he made a special gun and used magic to fix his memory after learning the truth on this gun. Then he deleted the memory in his mind and turned back to a normal Seth Beller. However, every time he felt bored, there would be a strong voice in his heart telling him, shoot it in the head. He did it every time. After that, it was a long wait. In the end, Shenyan really came back as the Supreme Wisdom had calculated, and their plan was launched. Shenyan was silent for a while. He had actually heard of the Supreme Wisdom, but he had no conflict with the Kree Empire. But if everything really went according to his plan, then Shenyan, who had consumed 2/3 of his magic power, would have much energy left to face the Kree Empire after withstanding the energy of the nuclear bomb and the angel's wings. What's more, he raised his head, and the mental tentacles that wrapped around the entire Earth had already warned him. Outside the Earth, a huge fleet of Kree people had surrounded this place. He smiled. If the Supreme Wisdom thought that this would be foolproof, then he had made a huge mistake. Shenyan put aside Strange's whereabouts and Tony Stark's safety for the time being. He didn't even have time to care about Scython's reappearance on Earth. The top priority now was to completely destroy this fleet that was heading towards the Earth at full speed. No one would be left alive. The magic power formed a huge shadow under his feet, and the wizard's robes moved without wind, and flew into space in the blink of an eye. Shenyan looked at those aggressive warships and thought, it seems that the last killing was not cruel enough. Sorry for being late, I had a meal. Please vote. Chapter 100, The End of the Kree. In fact, It was not only Shenyan who could see the arrival of the Kree fleet through his mental tentacles. Humans could see it with their naked eyes. It was not until this moment that people realized that the overwhelming metaphor was not an exaggeration, and even the sun was obscured. Hawkeye sat in the rear cabin of the Quinjet and cursed in a low voice. The eye made by Tony himself had invaded SHIELD, and by calling their satellites and Stark Enterprises satellites, the four people sitting in the cabin could see the full picture of the fleet more clearly than anyone else on Earth. That ship. Rhodes was speechless when he saw the largest ship in the fleet, but he could not blame him because the ship was really terrifyingly large. Frank reluctantly sat up, forced himself to open his eyes and looked at the picture. His face was so ugly, not just because of the pain that was burning in his body at this time. He said hoarsely, "I saw it in the database before it was disbanded. It was a starship of the Kree. Damn it, I don't think nuclear bombs can do anything to it." "Are you kidding?" Frank glanced at Hawkeye who was talking. "Do you think I'm kidding? Haven't you read the information? This damn thing is only owned by 2 major empires in the universe. Even the Xander people with the Nova Corps don't have it. It's as big as a planet, with Star Destroyer cannons, superluminal flight, and force field shields that can resist black holes." "Damn it," he cursed fiercely. His face became paler and paler, and he seemed to be shaky in his seat. "We haven't had any conflict with the Kree," Hawkeye said. "Yes, we haven't, but what reason do you think is needed for invasion?" "Haha, I remember that woman Danvers has a good relationship with them. Maybe we can see her in the advance fleet this time. She is from Earth, and she is a member of the Avengers." "Do you think she thinks she is? How long has she been back to Earth?" "This cousin who is obsessed with being a space policeman." Frank's emotions were a little out of control. Steve ignored Hawkeye and Frank's little quarrel. "This kind of thing has happened too many times in the past." He suddenly pointed to a place on the holographic image and said, "Zoom in there." The picture quickly zoomed in, and a man in a black robe floated in the dark universe. His face was gloomy. Hawkeye's eyes widened. "Who is that? Who else could it be? Damn, Thor and Banner are not here. They really picked a good time. The Earth is now in a mess. The one in the White House just died, and the current director of S.H.I.E.L.D. also died. A group of senior officials also died inexplicably, and even their bodies turned into mud." "Captain, what should we do now?" Rod gritted his teeth and called the captain again, and Steve did not correct him. He said to the eye with a serious face, "Change the route. We will go to the White House." "Received the order. The destination has been set, and it is expected to arrive in 10 minutes. The eye's mechanical voice sounded in the cabin. Steve continued, "We may not be able to help him, but at least we have to try." "Frank, your physical condition does not allow you to fight. You and Rod stay in the Quinjet to continue monitoring. Clint and I will go to the White House together. We must find a way to send the nuclear bomb into space in the shortest possible time," Hawkeye half-jokingly said, "just like the past, right, Captain?" "Am I the only one who misses the past?" Steve lowered his eyes, looking at those old photos, his eyes full of complex emotions. "Maybe we should have persisted at the beginning. In that case, maybe we wouldn't have disbanded," he said softly. "That's not your fault, Steve." Frank shook his head. He knew what Steve meant. No one spoke anymore, and the cabin fell into silence. In space, in the main control room of the Kree's star battleship. "Commander, we have arrived right in front of the Earth. Please give orders." The Kree, wrapped in a black combat uniform, whose gender could not be seen, reported to another Kree who was standing in front of the battleship's main control computer with his hands behind his back. The commander turned around. He had a beard and his blue skin was already wrinkled. "Don't worry, follow the plan of the Supreme Wisdom. First find the location of the Earthman, use the Star Destroyer and the lives of his friends to force him to surrender. We have a 67% success rate. If he disagrees, then we can proceed with the follow-up plan." Another Kree reported, "Commander, we lost the vital signs of Seth Buller." "It doesn't matter, it's just a son of Igor." "Ha, I'm afraid he doesn't even remember that he has such a son." "The plan can proceed without him." "Commander, we found him." "Really?" The commander laughed and said, "Send the picture over. Let us see what the black-robed wizard who helped us destroy the Skrull Empire looks like." The battleship pilot who received the order quickly adjusted the picture. In the sea of stars, there was a small dot like dust blocking their fleet and a blue planet. Zoom in. The commander touched the beard on his chin with interest. The picture was enlarged, and Shenyan's face was clearly transmitted. The commander nodded. Even by our standards, he is a good enough individual. At least that face is much better than his foul-mouthed friend. What's his name? Tony Stark, a Kree in silver armor who had been standing beside him, answered. It's a difficult name to pronounce, and a lowly earth creature, the commander said casually, and waved his hand. Send a battleship to contact him. Show him the image of his friend and the power of our Star Destroyer. Well, just blow up the planet next to it. He pointed to the moon. Yes, Commander. The driver who received the order began to execute the order meticulously, his hands trembling slightly. It's rare to get the opportunity to fire the Star Destroyer. This honor can be engraved in the family tree. The face of the Kree under the helmet was distorted with excitement. He quickly started the Star Destroyer and preheated it. If you look from the outside, there is a crack in the middle of the star battleship, and a terrifying red light is lit from it. Even if it hasn't been fired, no one will doubt its power. Commander, Team D78A3 has left the ship and is expected to contact him in 2 minutes. Do you want to broadcast the footage? Of course. Tell Team D78A3 that I want to contact him personally. The commander smiled complacently. In his opinion, there would be no mistakes as long as they followed the plan of the Supreme Wisdom. After all, it had never made a mistake before. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.